Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto becomes smart and manipulating during the Chunin exams part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. I remember how our friendship started. A 9-year-old blonde saw what was unfolding before him. The screaming and jeering from the young children. The laughter as the group played, all the while a lone girl was stuck in the middle of the group on her hands and knees in tears. Surrounding the yard were children that would either join in or look on. Such as the newest arrival from Konoha's formerly largest clan. "Come on, ugly Ami! Who cut your hair? A blind woman?" The leader of the group mocked as the children in turn chorused in laughter, obediently following the biggest kid on the playground. The purple-haired girl with asymmetrical hair let tears flow freely from her eyes as silently as possible as they stained the dirt of the playground below. Her striped blouse was covered in mud, and the markings on her sleeves had been torn off. "Ugly Ami! Ugly Ami! Ugly Ami!" The sheep-like children of the orphanage continued to chorus. The blonde abruptly stomped over to the group and, standing over the fallen girl, "Hey! Knock it off!" The biggest child of the group, the leader, spun and turned to the blonde. "Oh, and what are you going to do about it, little Naruto?" The bigger boy mocked as he clenched his hand into a fist before grinding his knuckles into Naruto's blonde hair. Naruto smacked away the offending hand. "Shut up, Tobio. You were new here just like everyone else. It doesn't give you the right to tease the others." "What, Naruto? Are you trying to be her hero? You are just the academy clown. Even Ami doesn't like you." Naruto flinched briefly, his gaze falling down to the sniffling Ami. "So what? Still doesn't give you the right." "Right. Naruto, who cares? We're just having fun." A chorus of children followed Tobio. "Yeah, Naruto, it's just fun." "Come on, Naruto." "Well, she doesn't look like she's having fun," Naruto said as he stood up for the girl. "Why are you even protecting her? She doesn't like you." "None of us do," Tobio fired back. "Because apparently no one else will. They just follow you because you're the biggest kid in the orphanage." "What? And you think she wouldn't trade places with you? Do you think you can't be messed with, Naruto, because you've been here all your life?" "You're wrong," Tobio remarked as he lightly kicked Ami's heel, prompting the girl to look up. "Ami, do you want Naruto to take your place?" Naruto's jaw tightened as he looked up, staring Tobio in the face. He didn't even need to look down and see Ami's silent decision. "And there it is," Tobio said with a grin before he was quick to deliver the first punch. Then many from the children followed suit. It was quite some time later that a beaten and bloodied Uzumaki Naruto picked himself up from the place Ami had once been. With a swelling eye and a limp, Naruto made his way to retire to his bed. Along his path was the dark-haired last Uchiha, the orphanage's newest and temporary arrival. "That was smart," the Uchiha remarked. Naruto scowled at his classmate Sasuke. He had been top of their class in the academy for the past 3 years, and seemed to have no plans of relinquishing his spot. Better than having the power to stop it, and doing nothing to help. Sasuke shrugged. "It wasn't my problem. A ninja is supposed to protect people of our village, like the Hokage. I'm not the Hokage." Naruto scowled. "Well, when I get stronger than you and become Hokage, I won't turn my back on you." "You won't become stronger than me, Naruto," Sasuke replied bluntly as Naruto continued to limp away. "Today I was." Years later, to say that Naruto was a bit put out was an understatement. He dragged his feet down the dirt roads of Konoha, kicking a pebble all the while silently cursing his teammate. He had just asked his sensei, Kakashi, if he could train him for the upcoming Chunin exam finals. Perhaps the most important moment in his young shinobi career. However, the man had declined, much to the blonde's displeasure. Kakashi had told him that Sasuke was going to need all the help he could get against Gaara, and that he had already promised he would train Sasuke. It wouldn't have bothered Naruto much considering it was a promise. Naruto knew more than anyone how important it was to keep a promise. The problem was, he knew his sensei was lying when it concerned training his rival. His sensei had at least tried to line up another to take his place, which was thoughtful of him. That was until Naruto had met the sensei that was supposed to train him. He had defeated the poor bastard with a perverted jutsu that he had designed in his own bored amusement, and the man had humorously passed out. Naruto knew that he both couldn't respect or rely on anyone that would pass out for hours at a time over a single jutsu that was designed for his own amusement. So here was his problem. Sure, Sasuke was going to have trouble with his fight against Gaara. There was no doubt about that. Yet Naruto was going to have trouble with his fight too. His opponent was the former Rookie of the Year Hyuga. The fight wouldn't be easy, and it wasn't like the Hyuga was any less dangerous. At least Sasuke had a few useful techniques under his belt that could possibly stand a chance against Gaara. Naruto knew that to even hope to beat Neji he would need help, and a lot of training. So when he arrived at his favorite training ground, and saw a woman in ragged dark blue clothing there walking on water, he was instantly mesmerized. It had been the first sight to truly draw his attention since he parted ways with his sensei. He had only seen such a thing during his sensei's battle with Zabuza, the demon of the hidden mist. The woman was a vision of beauty even from a distance, and he found himself already making his way over there. Although he did so with caution, Naruto was the QB vessel. It was always a gamble approaching strangers, and trying to figure out how they would act beforehand. Not that he could completely blame them. After all, the demon fox had nearly destroyed the village the day he was born. Although that fact never really bothered him. He had grown to be self-sufficient when he could rather than relying on others. He owned very little and lived a rather minimalist lifestyle as consequence, and the few things he did own were rather beat up. His complete wardrobe consisted of 2 second-hand orange jumpsuits that had been stitched and patched up several times with his mediocre but actively growing sewing skills. He had been given them for free at a thrift store when he was young, and he wasn't the type to throw out a gift no matter how beat up they became. Then naturally a couple pairs of underwear and a couple black shirts. In his closet he also had some overalls that no longer fit him, but kept them for sentimental value. He didn't look too far from being homeless. Naruto found his seat on a rock overlooking the lake. The woman had since begun going through what appeared to be several different fluidly moving taijutsu stances. He could have sworn he saw the water bubble and boil beneath her feet, but he didn't know for certain. He wasn't even sure if the woman had noticed his arrival and the fact that he was watching her. She was young and had an hourglass figure. She couldn't be a day older than 25. She had ankle-length auburn hair with that fell down like a lion's mane. Her dark blue nail polish gleamed in the sun and matched her current lipstick. She had an exotic look that didn't look like anything he had ever seen. She didn't wear the typical red and green colors of the Hidden Leaf Village. Instead, her sea colors firmly matched with the blonde's eyes. Although perhaps he had a slight bias as the area where his apartment was located, he grew used to seeing women wearing ruby red lipstick, high heels, and fishnet clothing with miniskirts. The proctor of the second part of the Chunin exam only solidified that opinion, since the only other female kunoichi he had really taken the chance to look at besides her was one that, instead of fishnet, used bandages to cover her body, which was frankly not much better. She continued twisting and turning through various movements. It looked like a dance the way she was performing. Then all at once, she stopped and turned into water, collapsing into the lake with a splash. The action thoroughly confused the genin until he felt a hand on his shoulder, as someone used him as support to lift themselves quickly over the stone to plop down next him. "I usually charge for lessons, you know," she said with a saucy grin as she turned her head to look at Naruto. Naruto nearly flinched when she sat down next to him, but her forming smile calmed him down considerably. He stayed silent for a moment as he looked out over the lake to where she was formerly. "So how were you doing all of that? Like walking on water?" Naruto asked, genuinely curious, as he turned back to face the woman. The woman looked amused and replied, "I'm Meiterumi, nice to meet you too," she said in an overly cheerful voice that held hints of sarcasm, which indeed got Naruto to rub the back of his head in embarrassment. "Sorry," he said, embarrassed. "I'm Naruto, Uzumaki Naruto," he said carefully. It was always a gamble giving his name out. He was just hoping she wasn't like most people whom, after learning his name, often made excuses to leave. However, to his surprise, the woman was unfazed and merely continued chuckling at the whole situation. "Uzumaki Naruto, eh?" She closed her eyes and leaned back with both hands on the rock as she gently began swinging her feet back and forth. She looked quite relaxed and comfortable in her own skin. "I've heard quite a bit about you around the village." She followed her question by opening her right eye to peer at Naruto to gauge his reaction. Naruto scowled a bit at the mention of his reputation, but said nothing. So the woman continued, "They say that you are dangerous and can't be trusted." She finished her statement slowly, making sure to say every word. Naruto's expression turned sour once she said that. "That you are a real handful?" She sent him a questioning glance. The teen boy looked as if he was ready to just get up and leave. Yet her steady hand that she put on the boy's shoulder kept him in place. "Good thing for you. I don't always believe what I hear," she said with a grin as she leaned forward to get in Naruto's view. "You don't seem so bad." Naruto, on the other hand, was going through a range of emotions with his encounter with this Meiterumi. He wasn't a complete idiot, unlike what most people thought about him. He was beginning to catch on that this woman must have been someone from another village that was just visiting for the Chunin exams. He hadn't met many people from other villages, and the 3 that he did meet, he wasn't too fond of them. However, maybe this time things would be different. "I also saw the poster. You are going to be in the upcoming Chunin exam, right?" she asked, giving the teen a questioning glance. "I bet you regret taking that silly face-painted shinobi photo now, don't you?" Naruto brought himself back to reality, and collected himself. He knew he would need to before he opened his mouth on the subject. He still was a bit sour over Kakashi's decision. That, and bringing up his genin photo and seeing all of the posters around the village, was starting to make him regret not listening to the photographer's advice. Mei sat up, closing the distance between both herself and Naruto in the process. She rested her hand on his leg for balance once again while picking up a few pebbles off the ground and lobbing them into the lake for amusement. "So then why aren't you training with your sensei? I hear that the Hyuga are rather dangerous opponents. If I was in your shoes, I would be training pretty hard." Naruto clenched his fists at the thought of his sensei. Sasuke was probably out there with Kakashi now, learning all sorts of cool jutsus that would just leave him in the dust when he got back. Then he would get a bunch of praise when he beats Gaara. Sakura will be fawning over him even more than she usually does, and he would never get the time of day from her. It wouldn't even matter if he was able to pull off a miraculous victory. All he knew how to do right now would be to work on chakra control, and the basics. Naruto ran a hand through his hair and tried to remain calm. My sensei, he said the word sensei with a bitter taste and a tight jaw before continuing. Kakashi is going to go train my teammate Sasuke for the month. If Naruto was looking at the woman, he would have seen the slightest unnerving glint in her eyes when he said that. He left you here? Unsupervised? Forsaking you for another teammate? Something tells me this isn't the first time, Naruto-kun, she said slowly, with hints of worry in her voice. Naruto scowled. For some reason the woman who was sitting next to him always knew the correct choice of words to say to get under his skin. He tried his best to not let things people say get to him, a skill he had to just develop living with the QB in him. It was like a mask that he could put on, that insults would bounce off of them. As a child, this mask was made of porcelain, weak, and a single insult could fracture it. Yet, as he grew older, he was able to exchange the porcelain for iron, tempered and unyielding. Now most things never fazed him. Yet here was this woman speaking to him as if there was no mask at all, or as if she knew exactly what to say to just slip past the mask for a mere moment to get her point across. Yet a mere moment was all she needed. Naruto stood up to leave, no longer wanting to continue this conversation any longer. Yet once he made his stand, the woman proposed an offer that he knew he didn't want to refuse. Well then, Naruto-kun, how about I teach you? I am from the Hidden Mist village, but I can see that you have a lot of untapped potential, and frankly it would be an honor to help you reach your potential over this next month. I believe I could teach you quite a bit of things that you would find useful. Naruto turned to face the woman and gave her a questioning glance. Like? How do I even know you are qualified to teach? The woman turned to Naruto and cocked an eyebrow at him. Well, Naruto, you don't. You just need to trust me. If you don't want to, then you can go with your other options. I won't take it personally. Naruto said nothing. For some reason he knew the woman's statement was that of a rhetorical question. I am going to have to decline. I have had some bad experiences in the past with my teachers deceiving me. The woman shrugged her shoulders and stood up and walked to the water, calling at Naruto. It is better than having no teacher at all. But alright then, Naruto. I wish you the best of luck with whomever you hope to train with in the coming month, she said as she took her first step out onto the water as several clones of her began to rise up out of the water. Naruto carried on looking at the woman for several minutes as he watched her go through several sets of taijutsu. He didn't think much more of it than that until she did only what appeared to be 3 seals and a giant water dragon appeared out of the water circling her clones. The giant beast gave a roar before flying up and crashing back down, merging once again with the water. Naruto forced himself to close his eyes as he walked away. He knew that if he continued to watch, he would take her up on the offer. However, he also knew that he had to be more careful about who he chose to teach him. One tried to kill him in the past after all. Naruto sighed as he made his way to the Hokage Tower in the village. He may not see the old man that often, but when he did, he usually gave pretty good advice. He walked over Konoha's dirt roads and was used to the stairs. It was a path that he took quite often in his childhood. The orphanage wasn't that far away from the Hokage Tower. Although as he walked, it felt like every step was a struggle, knowing that there was someone who was willing to teach him just down in his favorite training ground. It wasn't like she was asking him to spend a month in the forest of death. As he approached the Hokage doors, he briefly took a peek into the small paper bag he had been holding to ensure its contents hadn't melted. He passed through the large double doors at the entrance to the tower with a smile on his face as he withdrew one of the treats in the bag for himself. Over at the front desk was a young brown-haired teen, no older than 18, who perked up a bit at the sight of the blonde. "Oh, Naruto!" she exclaimed in surprise. "Wait, are those donuts?" she said as her eyes widened further and she gained a splitting grin. "Hey there, Hitomi." Naruto greeted with the best smile he could muster, with his thoughts weighing him down. "I brought you a donut." The older girl smiled slyly as she accepted the treat, her eyes dancing in delight as she chewed into the sugary delight. "Naruto, I haven't seen you in a while," Hitomi said between bites. "I thought you forgot about me." Naruto rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. "I've just been busy with the Chunin exams, but I didn't forget," he said as he gave the donut a nod. "Is the old man in right now?" Hitomi licked her fingers as she shoved a series of papers aside with the edge of her sticky palm. Right now, actually, he is with members of the village council." "I'm sorry," Hitomi said with a wince as she suddenly looked at her treat a tad guilty. Naruto shook his head. "Don't worry about it. It's alright. Can you tell him I came by?" Hitomi licked her fingers again as she nodded her head, grabbing one of the pens on her desk. "Oh yeah, of course," she said through a full mouth, having just stuffed her face. "I'll let him know as soon as he is out." "And why would Hokage-sama be interested in seeing a failure like you?" a voice called out from behind Naruto. "What did you say?" Naruto said as he spun around in anger. Hyuga Neji stood across from him with the same stuck-up and condescending look he delivered to Hinata after he defeated his cousin. "Only the reality," Neji explained. Beside him he was escorting another girl that looked a couple years younger than him. She looked similar to Hinata with slightly stronger features and longer hair. "You won your battle solely based on luck. You are the only one that made it into the finals who doesn't deserve to be there." Naruto ground his teeth. "You shit-talking motherfucker." Naruto said bluntly. Naruto! Hitomi cried out in surprise. I can't believe they even let you be around members of your own family after what you pulled. Naruto said angrily. That is because Naruto, some people like you are in fact replaceable, where others such as your teammate garner special attention. Niji said smoothly as he stood firm. You bastard! Naruto growled as he stepped forward towards Niji. Although the white-eyed boy didn't bother to wait for a potential attack. He slid forward with his palm outward, slamming it against the blonde's chest, as his other arm was used to block the girl standing beside him. Niji straightened himself up once again as Naruto had stumbled back to the front desk of the Hokage tower, eliciting a yelp. Hitomi. Both of my teammates could have dodged that attack, and both of them aren't even moving forward in this tournament. At your level, you will never be able to match the likes of the others in the competition. Naruto grit his teeth as he supported himself on the desk. I just need to match the level of one, he said as he glared at the Hyuga. Niji scoffed. Good luck. Come Hanabi, he said as he ushered the girl beside him out of the room. Hitomi's eyes were glued wide at her desk. What the hell? What was that about? Naruto, do you want to report this or anything? Isn't he supposed to be your competitor? That was totally illegal, on so many levels. Hitomi exclaimed as she began ranting off. Forget it, Hitomi. The old man is busy anyways, right? I'll just tell him later. Naruto said as his mind was heavy with completely other thoughts. Besides, I have somewhere else I need to go. Naruto explained as he left the tower, leaving a frowning front desk girl behind. Mei Terumi didn't show it, but she was barely containing a smile. She had a plan, but it was delicate. While TT was her goal to get the trust and loyalty of the boy, and she knew that by this point in his life it wouldn't take that much. The boy had been ostracized his entire life in his own home. No one bothered to give the boy a chance, and she could tell just by the way they looked at him. They gave him condescending stares left and right as if the boy was useless and not worth one's time of day. Yet that was far from the case, and that was why she was here. Jinchuriki should never be ignored. The Mist Village was formerly a strong nation that had the world's greatest sword wielders and all of the nations rivaling even the greatest of samurai. Their power for a time was unrivaled. However, now with the long ongoing war that was imposed by the last two Mizukage, that power diminished. Nearly all of the bloodlines in the country had since been purged. If she were to be honest with herself, the best day in the lives of the people who lived in the water country, as of recent, was the death of the fourth Mizukage. He had changed from the young charming boy he once was in a single night, and turned into a ruthless tyrant that followed in the Sandame's footsteps. In short, the reason why she was here for Naruto was to obtain the one thing the Mist lacked presently: power. They were lucky with the fact that at least 2 of the 7 shinobi swordsmen had stayed loyal to the Mist throughout the war. That fact of the matter was that with the loss of 5 of their strongest shinobi, and the purge of the bloodlines, the Mist was no more powerful than that of the Snow, Waterfall, or Rain villages. It was only their reputation for their brutality that had prevented other villages from attempting to seize a foothold. Something which needed to be corrected quickly if they wanted to maintain their standing. When she had received intelligence that Konoha had a Jinchuriki that had no ties to the village, and seemingly wanted to become the Hokage with no real reason as to why besides the fact that people would acknowledge him, a plan began to form. Like many orphans from the Mist Civil War, the boy grew up without anyone ever giving him the time of day, or never having time for him in general. She would be the first person that would be there for him. The thought was simple, manipulative, and effective. Yet no different from the report that she had received about the apprentice of Zabuza. While not exactly morally just, desperate times called for desperate measures. She could only hope that she didn't grow too emotionally attached to the boy, for when she would reveal to him who she truly was, she could only hope that the boy would side with her, or else she would only be adding to the problem. She was confident that he would, she just didn't want to become overconfident. She heard a speech that had been passed down from generation to generation in the Mist. It was a story that had been told from some wandering nobody in Wind Country whom was in the art of crafting toy puppets and was said to have a repertoire of 102 puppets at the time. Yet that wasn't what was important about the man. What was important was what he said. This wise man said that people were like his repertoire of puppets. That they tried to coast through life putting forth as little effort as necessary to get by. When left unchecked, people cut off from the judgment of others would rationalize away the reasons they should do their best, or even do at all. He felt that what keeps people in check is judgment of other people they care about. He gave the examples of people wanting their parents to be proud of them, their love interests to notice them, the people they admire to befriend them, and that was why they try. The wise puppeteer said these connections to other people are strings that constantly tug at them, pulling them in this or that direction. Without these strings to tug at them, people, like puppets, are inclined to do nothing at all. A powerful, if withdrawn lesson, but nothing groundbreaking, of course, until May continued to listen to the story of this man and analyzed what he had to say. One could only say that it wasn't right to compare people to puppets, but such an act would only get the puppeteer talking once again. Perhaps, the old man said, giving a pause for dramatic effect. But assuming I'm correct for a moment, what happens when someone becomes disconnected from the strings? When everyone a person cares about dies or leaves, or when they never had anyone to begin with? They are left adrift in an empty world, without ties to other people, and thus very little purpose in their lives. That was where Naruto came into all of this. The boy was born an orphan, and the only ties and strings to other people that he had were weak ones. The Hokage who was busy running a village and only saw Naruto a few times a year. Or the owners of a ramen bar that he came to become friends with because of his unhealthy addiction and pitiful budget? What reason did the boy honestly have to try hard to become a ninja? With no one to judge him, or to question him for not trying hard enough? His own sensei had cast the boy off to the side in favor of a different student. Naruto was, and still is stuck in a state where he alone had to gauge when he would stop trying. He had no one to tell him that there was a solution to his problems. The boy was a shell of a human, a person that had lost hope, he just didn't know it yet. That was why she was confident. She could change the boy, change him so that he no longer subconsciously doubted himself. So that he no longer thought he was just wasting not just his time, but the time of other people as well. The fact that he would have a mentor, a real teacher, that could tell him that there was a solution to his problems, and that it was within his reach. Her actions, she knew, would not just boost the boy's confidence, but it would give him hope. And a little hope is a good thing. She and she alone would be his reason to try hard, to not let her down because of her faith in him and his inevitable hope that it would not be misplaced. She knew from first glance that Konoha had failed their Jinchuriki. The lack of acknowledgement had left him desperate, and desperation only attracted vultures. Naruto sighed as he returned to the training ground and stripped himself of his jacket, shirt, and sandals before wading into the lake and calling out to the woman whom was now sitting cross-legged on it. He swam out to the center of the lake at a relaxed pace, as he saw the woman open her eyes and take notice of him. He swam right up to her, at which point he was swimming right in front of Mei, whom had since moved from sitting to a crouch on one knee. It became obvious to Naruto that the woman was not going to acknowledge him any more than just staring at him, before he said anything. Especially since he had blown her off not more than an hour ago. "I'm sorry," Naruto said with a frown, doing his best to avoid the woman's gaze. He was terrible with apologies, not because he didn't feel like apologies were necessary, but because he had never been given the opportunity to really give any. "I do need your help. You're all I got," Naruto said, trying his best to sound sincere and not make it seem as if the woman was a last resort. Mei in turn grinned at the apology. There was no point in trying to give the boy a hard time over it when he said he was sorry, and came back to her. "All right. Then I want your undivided attention this month, Naruto-kun, is that understood? I want you to give me everything you got, and if you are not, I will just stop training you." "Why would I help someone who isn't trying their hardest?" Naruto nodded at her statement as he continued to bob up and down in the water, as he did his best to stay afloat. Mei gave a charming smile that did its best to calm the boy. She reached down into the water and grabbed the boy from under his armpits and hoisted him out of the water, despite his initial protests. She ignored any ramblings the boy was saying about essentially being hoisted in mid-air over a lake. She calmly said, "All right, first lesson shall be dancing." Naruto stopped complaining about how he was hoisted up and instantly wondered if training with this woman was a bad idea, until she continued her statement. "On top of water." She finished with a glint of amusement in her eyes as she watched Naruto's face go through several various emotions. "Anyways, this is what I want you to do, Naruto." A week had passed since he had met this woman he now called his sensei. It felt like this was the first sensei he ever truly had. He wasn't trying to say that his previous teachers were bad, they just were gone. He thought dryly as his mind wandered to the harsh reality of only having 3 weeks left to prepare for the finals. Naruto sighed as he stuffed himself with another mouthful of ramen. He was trying to have a quick meal before he would go off to meet his sensei. As the week had gone by, he had begun to believe that his sensei must have been something along the lines of a gift from Kami herself. She had fallen right into his lap like an angel when he needed her most. She then went on to not only train him, but give him her complete and fully undivided attention. She wasn't like Irika, who barely gave Naruto a few extra pointers outside of class in his last remaining years at the academy. With the knowledge he had now after the Mizuki incident, he realized that Irika only really decided to help once he got over the fact that he had the Kyuubi within him. He didn't think he could ever really look at Irika the same way after he found out that he used to hate him. Besides, by that point it had been too little too late. She wasn't like Kakashi, who had chose another student over him. While Kakashi was a great shinobi, he had his flaws as a teacher. His laid-back personality often made these flaws more apparent. No, Mei wasn't like them. She woke up early, and would set up the training ground that they were going to use. When Naruto got there, she was perfectly ready to work all through the night if he wanted to, and he often wanted to. He would work until he physically collapsed. Naruto fought down the bitterness that swelled within him at the most recent thought. Kakashi had chose his teammate over him, and left him stranded with no one competent. Kakashi had told Team 7 the first day they trained together that those who don't follow the rules are trash, but those who abandon their teammates were worse than that. I hope I remember to call him on that next time I see him, Naruto thought as he tightened his jaw. Regardless, he enjoyed his time with Mei. The training thus far had gone quite smooth, and if he was honest with himself, and she had taught him a lot. There was some practical stuff in the life of a shinobi, and other things were just skills that were just useful to have. For example, he thought it was an utter joke when she said that she was going to teach him to dance on water. Yet when she had lifted him out of the water, and had him balance himself on her toes as he tried to grasp the right amount of chakra needed to keep himself afloat, he realized that most teachers likely wouldn't ever think of teaching him in such a personal fashion. They would likely just tell him the general idea and then push him into a hot spring or a pool, although there was also the fact that he hadn't ever really had close contact like that with anyone such as dancing. He would never admit that the situation made him blush quite a bit. May was rather beautiful after all. He could only hope the woman didn't notice his slight crush and have it get in the way of their training. She had taken the time, and used some of her own energy to ensure that he succeeded. Only a couple hours had passed before she began teaching him how to dance on top of the water. A skill that she later explained he may very well need to know sometime down the road. Why not kill two birds with one stone? Was what she said as their training continued. Soon enough the dancing had turned into skating. Learning to skate across the water using chakra, moving at speed that typically wouldn't be possible. She had told him that this was a type of training that was implemented in the Mist Village due to their heavy reliance on large bodies of water and water ninjutsu. By the end of the week Naruto could glide around the water at speeds far faster than he could ever hope to run. He wanted to compare himself to how quick that fuzzy eyebrows kid was, but he doubted he would ever compare to him when he took off his weights. He would need to train his body a lot longer than a month to achieve that, although to his surprise May had told him that it wasn't impossible to achieve within a month. If it was his goal to become an incredible close-range shinobi, she was willing to help him with that. The thought of earning his victories by beating others in the tournaments such as Sasuke and Neji in hand-to-hand combat was something he truly wanted to see. The question was, would he be able to develop those skills in time? Naruto sighed and dug into his pockets, reaching around for his old and beaten little wallet that always seemed to be irreparably light. That was when he found the contents of his purse to be absent. Naruto paled. Not a second later the brown-haired girl with a white bandana leaned over the counter with a smile. Don't worry about it, Naruto. It will be on the house today. Naruto's crestfallen look couldn't meet her eyes as he numbly nodded. Thanks, I am. The girl returned a small smile, not pressing any further. Naruto quietly left the ramen bar with a drag to his step. He knew that someday in life he would pay that family back for how kind they were to him. Those two were probably the closest people he had in his life. When he became successful, he knew exactly who would be taken care of first. Naruto walked at a brisk pace to the training ground where May was sure to reside, likely having already set up the training ground for whatever she felt like teaching him today. Of course, at this point he no longer cared about her sometimes questionable methods of training. She had taught him more in the past week than his previous senseis had done in months, even years. He could also barely hold in the excitement that was starting to build the closer he got to the training ground. May had said that she had wanted him to learn chakra control first, and then she could begin teaching him justice. Yet since he had mastered water walking by the end of last week, he couldn't help but grin as he got onto the training field, with the thought of new jutsus which he could show off, and more importantly impress Sakura-chan. Naruto-kun, May said with a smile, acknowledging his presence as he got closer to her. May-sensei. Naruto greeted with a smile. So what are you going to teach me today? He asked with a grin as he stripped himself of his orange jacket. Since they had been doing a lot of work on the water in recent days, he felt there was little point of him being completely in a jumpsuit for no reason. May gave a small smile and motioned Naruto to come towards a large rock she was standing by. Naruto, I'm afraid I found out some things about you which I would like to clarify. Naruto instantly paled the moment she said that, 1,000 thoughts going through his head a second. The most important ones that crossed his mind several times were, does she know about Kyuubi, and is she going to stop training me? Naruto reluctantly sat down beside her and waited to unveil the news of what she had heard about him. May ran a hand through her long auburn hair as she swung one of her legs over the other, making her ragged dark blue clothes rise up. One of the many things he would never understand about the woman. How was it she had more beauty than any other woman he had seen in Konoha, and yet she dressed like that of someone who was homeless? Naruto, May began with a weak smile as she turned to look at the boy. I heard yesterday after our training, some of the civilians of this village decided to come up and tell me that you are the host of Kyuubi, the nine-tailed demon fox. Is that true? She asked in a sincere voice. Naruto didn't say anything and looked at his feet, not really wanting to answer the question. May, however, had expected as such, and pulled the young teen boy close, nearly onto her lap, and wrapped her arms around him. She quickly felt the boy heat up, and she knew if she could have seen the boy's face from this position, it would have been bright red. I just want you to know, Naruto-kun, she began as she began to gently run her hand through his hair, you are not the Kyuubi, and in fact this only makes you far more special than I originally thought when I met you. You are a Jinchuriki. Naruto. Naruto had literally felt his heart warm and jump the moment she had told him that he was not the Kyuubi, and appeared to be accepting of his situation. Of course this didn't last long, as that feeling was quickly replaced with confusion at the term Jinchuriki. May, whom picked up on the boy's confusion, clarified what it meant for him, a product of human sacrifice. I know it may not sound great, but you are a hero, Naruto, and you are not alone. Naruto had taken the liberty at that point to nearly do a full 180 spin and blurt out, "What do you mean I'm not alone?" he asked in surprise, and an underlying tone of hope. Hoping that there was someone else out there like him. May smiled and ruffled his hair lightly. "Well, there are 9 demons, Naruto, not just one. You just happen to have the most powerful inside you. My village, the Hidden Mist, we have 2 Jinchuriki in our ranks. They are the heroes of our village for the sacrifice they made in order for our village to survive. One of them even became the Mizukage due to the general village populace loving him. So she may have stretched the truth a bit on that one, especially since they currently only had 1 Jinchuriki, and then 1 turtle that was in a gated area of the ocean behind the Mist's main island under heavy watch." However, Naruto didn't need to know that. Naruto gave a weak smile once she mentioned that. It was a good feeling knowing that there were others out there like him. However, he couldn't help but be bitter at the fact that they were treated like heroes, whereas he was treated like the dirt beneath people's boots even with the sacrifice he had to endure throughout his life. It wasn't fair. May grabbed hold of Naruto's hand as she continued running through his hair with her other hand. "Naruto, Kyuubi makes you special. For example, your chakra reserves must be nearly endless, right? That and you likely never get tired? You could go without sleeping, I imagine, correct?" Naruto didn't say anything, he merely nodded his head. Ever since he had found out about the fox, he had thought the thing was nothing but a curse. Nothing but a thorn in his side. Yet when he reflected back on the beast, every time he was in need, the fox was there to help him. The fox was there to make up for his lack of training. May continued as the boy sat in silence. "Then Naruto, I believe I have the perfect training for you, that can allow you to train 100 hours in a single hour, perhaps even 1,000 hours worth of training in a single hour. Yet first, I must give you a lesson, because over the past week I have come to understand a bits and pieces about how you act as a shinobi." Naruto had perked up at the training, but decided to stay silent, and just enjoy the close proximity he had to the woman. He imagined that this was the first time he had ever been held in the arms of anyone since the 4th Hokage had sealed the fox in him. Everyone else seemed perfectly content with ruffling his hair, as if there was a no-touching Naruto clause on the village. "Naruto, you have told me about your teammate Sasuke, whom you say thinks he is so special because he has the Sharingan? You hate the fact that he is capable of just looking at a jutsu and being able to copy it, right? You think it is unfair?" May questioned the boy in her arms as she rubbed her thumb on the back of the boy's hand. Naruto scowled at the mention of Sasuke, because it instantly made him think of what Sasuke was doing with Kakashi and the sorts of training the boy must have been getting. Naruto nodded his head in frustration. "That isn't the only reason I don't like him," he grumbled as he shifted uncomfortably beside the woman. Suddenly his feelings on the subject just began pouring out. "Because of those eyes of his, everyone in the village feels he's so special. They all act like they need to kiss his ass. Yet he has no regard for the people he hurts in the process. He even stole parts of a taijutsu style from one of our own shinobi who worked years to achieve it," he finished in frustration. "Yet why does that bother you, Naruto?" she said suddenly after he finished his statement. She spun the boy off and out of her grip, and onto the ground in front of her. "I am teaching you because I believe in you, Naruto. I believe that you can become great, probably one of the greatest shinobi that the world has seen in a long time. Yet, in order to become great you need to come to terms that this is a world of killers. That your life is training, and becoming stronger. That you have to wake up every morning and realize that it is do or die, because if you don't wake up and train, there is someone else out there that will. The Sharingan is a tool, an ability that allows the wielder to copy any jutsu he sees. However, don't fault him for using it, and get mad that the world is the way it currently is. Your teammate Sasuke uses that ability for whatever reasons he likes, yet it all comes down to whether he should copy the ability, and at least have the knowledge of it for later use, and it very well could save his life someday. Or not to copy a jutsu, and then later down the road his life may be at stake, and he could have saved it with that single jutsu he chose not to copy because people felt it was wrong? Don't be ridiculous. The only certainty is a shinobi's life is not about doing what is just, but doing what is necessary." May ran a hand through her hair as she knelt down next to Naruto's form on the ground and placed a firm hand on his chest. "I am not trying to defend your teammate Naruto. However, I have told you before, I am not training you to be good in these finals. I am not training you to do great in these finals. I am training you to win these finals, and to be the champion of these Chunin exams. In order to do that I need you to realize that in our life, where it is a constant struggle between life and death, there is no such thing as fair or just. I am going to train you to take every advantage, every opportunity, and then how to fight not just well, but tactically and intelligently. So do you accept that, Naruto? Or shall our training together end here?" Naruto closed his eyes and took a deep breath of air. "No, I get what you're saying," he said a bit bitterly. "But it's not like I have much of a choice either," he added. He hated the fact that she was right, not for the fact that she was right in general but more so since the subject was about Sasuke. Even when the Uchiha wasn't around, he somehow seemed to come up. "So what is this training method you have for me?" he said as he gently removed the woman's hand from his chest and sat up with a frown on his face. Mei chuckled to herself and had a small smile on her face as she looked down at the boy and picked little pieces of dirt off his back. The sound of her laugh warmed Naruto's heart. He didn't have many friends to hang out with, and the sound of laughter was something he heard in passing but didn't often take part in. He couldn't even remember the last time he had even heard playful laughter, and it not being someone specifically laughing at him like at the orphanage. Mei stood up and sat back down on the large stone the two of them were formerly sitting on. So now, Naruto, I am going to tell you a secret, alright? Don't tell anyone. When you told me that you had possession of the Shadow Clone Jutsu, I realized how I could train you. Now, while it is one of Konoha's forbidden techniques, one of my shinobi had caught a Konoha shinobi sticking their nose in places they didn't belong in my village. As such, when captured and facing interrogation, the coward had offered to trade jutsus in order to escape interrogation and leave the country. The Kage Bunshin was one of the techniques my shinobi obtained. Naruto stared at her questioningly and tilted his head to the side silently, looking in wonder. This eventually proved to unnerve the woman, and Mei closed her eyes in frustration and asked, "Why are you staring at me like that?" Naruto paused and opened his mouth to speak before closing it with a sigh. This happened several times as he tried to form the words, and he eventually said, "Well, I am just curious now about what rank you are in your village. You consistently just said that they were my shinobi and my village my shinobi obtained. You were talking as if they were your shinobi." "I am Ju." Mei's eyes had widened momentarily at the boy's analysis of her statement, and realizing her own error. "And here they said that Uzumaki Naruto is a bit unobservant? I shouldn't be so careless," she thought to herself as she realized that she would have to choose her own words more carefully when speaking to the boy from that point on. "I will tell you my rank and position when we arrive at the Chunin exam finals, alright Naruto? Is that fair enough?" she said with a smile as she looked down on the Jinchuriki. Naruto reluctantly nodded his head. He wanted to know more about Mei, but not at the cost of him losing his only teacher for this month. "The training I have never would have worked had I not found out today that you were the QB Jinchuriki." Okay, so maybe she lied a bit there. She always intended to have the boy go through with this training, she just didn't know when. The shadow clone technique is unique and different from any other clone out there that I know of. The reason for this is because the shadow clone creates an exact copy of the user, and once dispelled, any information the clone obtains when summoned is transferred back to the user. Now I know you must be thinking, why haven't I noticed it before, and this is what I believe. What you have told me from your fights, you never used the clones to do anything more than full-on frontal attacks. Frankly, Naruto, you are very tactical. They weren't really taking in more information, and I bet you felt that you were just very aware of your surroundings, rather than noticing that the clones were actually constantly sending information to you every time they were dispelled. The theory is that when you are using the clones for training, any form of training you do, besides physical training, the clones will retain that information and transfer it back to you. This training, however, would never work with anyone besides you, Naruto, because you have such high chakra reserves. Other people wouldn't be able to sustain that many clones. Do you know how many clones you can make, Naruto? Mei asked, slightly anxious as she gave her explanation. The possibilities, all the things this boy could do if he chose to train like this constantly. A single body that has the opportunity to learn a full year of experience in a mere day if done right. He could be the most powerful shinobi on the planet. She could only thank Kami that other villages didn't know the Kage Bunshin Jutsu, and Konoha had kept their Jinchuriki ignorant. Otherwise, all of the Jinchuriki in the world could have thousands of years under their belt in experience before they have even left their teens. Naruto frowned as he thought about it. He had been told that creating shadow clones were dangerous, but in all honesty, he had never felt the slightest chakra drain using them. That part he naturally blamed the fox for, not that it was a bad thing, of course. Naruto shrugged after thinking it over. I could probably make 1,000 or something like that just fine. I don't really feel any chakra drain when I make them, so I don't know how many I can make really. Mei did her best to hold in her surprise when the boy said that he could make 1,000 clones if not more. However, when the boy had told her that, a whole new idea had come to mind that she couldn't help but grin at. Naruto, I have several things I need to help you with, such as your seal which you told me about. I will eventually get to it, but tell me, what do you know about your Night-Aim Hokage? Naruto sighed as both he and Mei went off for their break from training. She had been training him since 8:30 in the morning till 3:30 in the afternoon. To most ninja, they wouldn't consider that very long. However, what she had Naruto do would have tired any shinobi out. Naruto didn't know what Mei was getting at when she mentioned the Night-Aim Hokage. Yet after she explained how the Night-Aim Hokage became one of the greatest shinobi in the world, and thought of as the world's greatest water jutsu user by even shinobi of the mist. His chakra reserves were that of which she could only compare to a former shinobi in their ranks. Naturally, Naruto wanted to pry and find out more about their ranks and where Mei fell, but he bit his tongue so he wouldn't lose his teacher. Hashigaki Kisame was the shinobi, supposedly the greatest of the 7 shinobi swordsmen. He had a chakra supply of that of a tailed beast, and that was whom she compared the Night-Aim to. She explained to him that her people had been trying for years to pull the water molecules out of the air all so they could accomplish water jutsus without any pre-existing source. However, it was just impossible for the average shinobi. The concept of pulling the water out of the air is extremely simple, yet the reason no one can do it is for the fact that they literally need to saturate the air around them constantly with bits of their chakra. It wouldn't really be that great of a technique if it weren't for the fact that since it is your chakra saturating the air, the water source that is then created by the technique can only be used by the creator. So with that thought in mind, she had Naruto start working on the technique with the assistance of many clones. Again, it wasn't a hard concept or skill to learn. Many of her shinobi in the mist could do it, just not at any effective quantity due to how much chakra was required to do so. As such, Naruto had picked up the technique quite quickly and was able to do it in a single area effectively. Now her task for him was one that she was even forcing him to practice now. Saturating the air with chakra even as they moved around. Something that would certainly be harder to do, but if he could learn how to do it, he had the makings of becoming a shinobi that the world had not seen in a long time. So how are you feeling, Naruto? Mei asked casually as they walked the streets of Konoha. Hungry. The blonde grumbled. Any energy ramen had once given him had been thoroughly spent. I meant with the technique, Naruto. Mei replied in amusement. Oh. Naruto said as he rubbed the back of his head, embarrassed. Well, it's actually kinda strange. Like I can feel my chakra clinging to the moisture in the air, but it also clings to people, which I don't understand. Mei raised an eyebrow at that. That was interesting. Really? Does it only cling to certain people? No. Naruto said, shaking his head. It clings to everyone. Even you. I can feel my chakra coating you as we have been walking along while I've been practicing this. Mei briefly paused in her walk. What are you trying to make your chakra do, Naruto? Find water for me to use. Naruto responded. Didn't you say that is what I should be focusing on? The blonde asked. Mei, however, stood slightly unnerved, but smiled in response. That's right. She said as they continued walking along. His chakra is recognizing the water inside of people. They rounded the corner, and Naruto started making his way to Ichiraku ramen, but he was halted by Mei's firm hand on his shoulder. You need to eat something other than ramen. There is nothing wrong with how much you eat, however I am not going to sit here and eat ramen for another week. Strength comes from protein, not salt. She finished spinning the boy around in the other direction. Soon enough they were upon the barbecue restaurant frequently visited by Team Asuma, so naturally he wasn't surprised when he saw their team there along with Yuhi Kurenai. However, what Naruto didn't expect was to catch sight of Guy's team. Immediately the sight of Niji made him start to grind his teeth. Their last encounter on the street a week ago was the push he needed to realize that he needed Mei's help. He was thankful for that. However, he still hadn't forgotten that the bastard had been willing to attack him, a Konoha shinobi, simply because he thought he was their better. Not to mention that he was already an asshole to begin with. Who the hell hospitalizes their own cousin, even after he knew she was beat? Naruto and Mei moved to get seated, although with the events prior Naruto couldn't help himself as he walked by Niji, and he promptly kicked his chair quite hard, making it slide a good foot. Usually ninjas have an expert sense of balance, and it wouldn't have been a problem except for the fact that Niji was busy eating with the grace of someone at a high-end ceremony. The meat he had between his chopsticks fell flat to the floor and teriyaki sauce splattered onto his robes. Sorry. Naruto drawled out, not meaning the apology for a second, as he stopped following after Mei, although Niji's gaze was rather fierce and firm as he took in the sight of Naruto. He said loud enough for Naruto and those gathered to hear, you should really respect your betters dead last. Their interaction had gained the attention of most in the restaurant, mostly because of Naruto's presence, but now those watching eagerly awaited for Naruto's comeback, if he had won. Naruto held back a scowl at Niji using the insult that was used by most of his classmates. He wondered if the fact that he had the lowest scores, and was the dead last in the academy, would plague him for the remainder of his shinobi career? He wished he could have displayed that the insult didn't bother him, but it did. I may be dead last, but I don't get mistaken for a girl. Naruto fired back. Niji bristled in his seat and self-consciously adjusted his hair a bit. He tried to look amused at the insult, despite the glare in his eyes. I see. I guess failures flock together. I can see why Hinata is taken with you, he said calmly in a level speaking voice. It didn't stop the said voice from reaching all corners of the room since it was dead silent, everyone curious about the encounter between the Hyuga prodigy and the village prankster. Failures, really? Is that it? Well, I never needed to cheat to win my matches. If you attack me like that again, I will report you to the Hokage. Mei put a hand on Naruto's shoulder on that comment, surprised. Suddenly the few missing pieces she had about Naruto's return were coming together. She was just hoping that Naruto wouldn't do something stupid. Yet Naruto wasn't called the most unpredictable ninja for nothing. Don't worry, Naruto, the Hyuga said politely, you are actually much more alike than you think. You see, I don't need anyone else to fight my battles for me. You will lose in our match, but it will have nothing to do with what happened outside of it, Niji said with a fake smile. Naruto shrugged out of Mei's grip as he approached Niji. You know what? You attack your comrades and betray them. The people who are supposed to fight at your side. I can't wait for the day that you're all alone, and no one is willing to help you because of it. Naruto said angrily before he turned his back on the Hyuga. The genin and their senseis gathered around had ceased eating altogether as they watched the encounter unfold, and the revelation that Neji had apparently attacked Naruto outside of the tournament. If Naruto had chosen to take the matter to the authorities initially, Neji could have been outright disqualified. I may one day be alone, Naruto. Yet I will never be as lonely as you, and everyone here watching knows it. Neji said, starting the timer on a bomb, and everyone knew it as Naruto immediately froze in his step. Mei quickly moved from where she stood and wrapped an arm around Naruto's shoulders. Come on. You don't need to listen to that. Neji's words had slipped past the iron and grazed the porcelain, because he knows I'm right. Neji said loudly as he wiped off his clothes, his piercing eyes focused on the blonde. Guy on the other hand looked gobsmacked that his student would say such things. It had nothing to do with being youthful at this point. Naruto and Neji were Konoha shinobi. If they didn't have each other's backs, no one will. Neji! Guy voiced loudly, his gaze firmly on his student. Where's your sensei Kakashi, Naruto? Neji asked, putting another crack in the porcelain. Neji! That is enough! Guy yelled. Naruto turned around, his eyes brimming with anger. Yeah. That is enough. Naruto said as he turned around to face the Hyuga. Although before any fight could truly unfold, Neji launched out with a palm thrust at the approaching Naruto, sending him sliding to the ground and crashing into a table behind him, barbecue food spilling all over him. The crowd stood up in shock at the events that unfolded. Report me for this if you wish, although then I will know you were afraid to face me. Naruto was nearly shaking in rage with his eyes squeezed shut as he pulled a chunk of meat covered in barbecue sauce out of his hair and tossed it to the side. I may be afraid of you, but you don't deserve to be in this exam. Naruto ground out as the meat hit the ground with a splat. Neji returned a condescending grin as he gave a mock bow before he made his leave. Guy, however, looked the worst out of the entire group of shocked onlookers. It was a look of queasy and uncomfortable disgust with what he just witnessed. Naruto, I am deeply sorry for this, Guy said as he bowed. Please do whatever you feel is necessary. I actually insist that you report Neji for his actions. Guy-sensei! Tenten exclaimed in surprise. She understood Naruto having all the right to do as he wished, but to encourage it. No, Tenten. Neji is wrong. We are shinobi of Konoha. We should behave better than this. What binds us together is our willingness to help one another, not to bring ourselves down, Guy said in one of the rare moments where he was completely serious. Mei knelt down beside Naruto, and promptly gathered the attention of all the people in the room since Neji had left. Are you alright? She asked as her hand glowed green with medical chakra. Naruto brushed her hand away and shook his head. I'm fine, he said as he grit his teeth standing up. Mei retracted her hand with a weak smile, gently rubbing the blonde's shoulder. Well, I get it, she said, earning Naruto's attention. I get why you came back. Naruto squeezed his eyes shut briefly, refusing to let himself cry in front of all of these people. He had grown past that. Yeah, Naruto confirmed as he left the barbecue place with a limp. Naruto, what do you want me to get you? Mei called out after him. I'm not hungry, he said back as he continued limping away. Naruto had a huge grin as he made his way down the street with a particular destination in mind. Ever since Naruto had started applying shadow clones to his training, every day and with every hour he would grow in leaps and bounds. He had since gotten the hang of drawing out water from the air around him, although he still had the problem of his chakra sticking to other people. The act of pulling water from the air didn't put much strain on his body, but it required a great deal of focus. However, if the chakra he was trying to pull from was stuck to a person, the act provided a near unbearable amount of strain on him. He hoped that it was like a muscle, and the more he used it the easier it would become. However, he wasn't sure and was really just hoping he didn't somehow damage his own chakra somehow. The original idea they had was to work with Kenjutsu and the water-cutting sword. However, ever since his past 2 encounters with Neji, he didn't want to be smart and keep him at a distance with the blade. He wanted to beat him, straight up, with his bare hands. Ever since he had told Mei that specific goal, the two of them had been training together constantly. She revealed that earlier when she said it was impossible for someone to obtain incredible speed and strength in a month. She lied. There was a rare exception. There was a particular training that was given to shinobi with the assistance of medical ninja that involved healing growing muscles at a faster than normal rate, and stimulating their growth with chakra. Although the process was exhausting to a normal shinobi, and therefore was rarely used. Naruto, however, was willing to fight through the pain and exhaustion if only to wipe the smirk off of Neji's face. The amount of taijutsu the pair worked on from that point forward nearly absorbed all of their time. They would occasionally try and add in Naruto's water manipulation to their training, but the issue with his chakra sticking to people often caused that portion of their training come to a halt. The only other portion of their training was focused heavily on chakra control. Control of his chakra would further increase his control of water he manipulated. The goal was that Naruto would be able to manipulate the water in the fashion of jutsus without the need of actually going through hand seals. It reminded Naruto of Gaara's sand. He didn't quite know how he felt about that comparison. Naruto broke himself from his train of thought as he appeared in front of the shinobi clothing store. Immediately he gained the butterfly feeling that he always initially got once he looked in the shop and caught sight of pink hair. Both Sakura and Ino were in one corner of the store, although Naruto did his best to go unnoticed. This was a trip for himself, and he didn't want to attract any other attention beyond that. May, despite the clothing she wore, seemed to have a surplus of money. She had given Naruto an absurd amount of ryo to buy all of the clothing he desired from the store. She had offered ever since it became impossible to remove the brown barbecue sauce from his clothes with repeated washes. She just told him, "Get something nice and blue." Naruto could barely contain his grin. He usually never had money to buy clothes that he wanted, so he had faithfully stuck to a couple orange jumpsuits that had served him well over the past 2 years. Now he stood in between a sea of clothes with no idea where to start, except for it being something blue. Naruto objectively considered himself to be in quite impressive shape before his training with May. The training May had him doing only further improved how toned his muscles were. The standard training of a civilian could take months to obtain a desired level of fitness, where with a shinobi it could be done in mere weeks with the assistance of chakra. One of the reasons Naruto couldn't help but be impressed with Lee, who didn't have that privilege and yet still kept in the best shape possible. Now Naruto was by no means bursting at the seams with his muscles, but he did have muscles that were quite firm, hidden by his jumpsuit. A part of him wanted to get something a bit more revealing to show off his hard work, but May shot that idea down quickly as a bit impractical. It also allowed his opponents to see visibly how strong he appeared, which wasn't good. Lee was a prime example of someone who showed off their physique. He may have been covered from neck to toe, but the outfit was skin tight. Naruto walked over to the area of the store dedicated to pants and shorts among other things. He was doing a good job at staying out of Ino and Sakura's line of sight as well. Although as he continued to browse it was becoming very apparent that he had no idea what he was even looking for. He knew he wanted it to be sleek, comfortable, and practical. Although a typical clothing store wasn't the best place to find that. "Naruto?" Ino's voice called out in surprise. "You're kidding me!" She all but shouted as she tossed her clothes on the rack and outright ran over to the blonde boy and gave him a huge hug. "Whoa! Hey Ino," Naruto said, completely stiff. He had to wonder if everyone outside suddenly decided to have a worship Naruto day outside, because it felt about just as likely. "What are you doing here?" Ino said in surprise as she had a smile splitting ear to ear as she brushed strands of hair behind her ear. Naruto still looked like a deer in a spotlight as he said, "I'm shopping for clothes, Ino." Naruto explained slowly, still almost disturbed. This was probably the absolute longest conversation he had solely with Ino in a good 5 years. Ino practically squealed in excitement. "Sakura, come over here!" Ino cried out animatedly. "Naruto is buying new clothes." Sakura looked equally disturbed at the sight. She locked eyes briefly with Naruto to see if he shared her sentiment. He did. "I can see that, Ino," Sakura said slowly, an eyebrow raised. Ino rolled her eyes and huffed as she let go of Naruto. "Oh, come on, girl. You can't tell me that this isn't the least bit exciting," she said before turning to Naruto. "Please tell me you are getting rid of that awful jumpsuit," the blonde girl said as she put her hands on her hips. Naruto rubbed the back of his head, the surreal situation suddenly making a bit more sense. "Yeah, I am," Naruto said with a laugh. Ino gave an overdramatic sigh of relief as she placed a hand on her chest. "Oh, thank Kami," she said. "Well, come on. Certainly no one showed you what to buy last time, but we will definitely not let that mistake happen twice. Come on, Sakura," Ino all but ordered as she physically started shuffling Naruto along. "We will?" Sakura repeated, surprised as Naruto gave her a pleading look for help. "Of course we will, Sakura. Think of this as like a civic duty or something," Ino said, spouting off the first thing that came to mind as she moved Naruto several racks over. "Now this is some better stuff. So tell me, Naruto, how much do you have to spend? Give it to me straight," she said, putting her hand up. "We can work something out. If you need me to lend you some money, I will, just this once," she continued on, waving her hands around animatedly. Nothing was going to stop her from this mission. Naruto looked over to Sakura for help, who in turn shrugged her shoulders. She didn't have an answer, but was equally surprised. And the only thing that shrug told him was that there was no way out of this. I don't really have a budget," Naruto explained. Ino's eyes immediately went wide with stars, and Naruto questioned if he should have said that. "At least, I have a lot of money saved up," Naruto deflected. "Well, shy Naruto," Ino said as she slapped his chest with the back of her hand. "Look who has been saving up for this," Ino said with a grin. She fired towards Sakura. "Really?" Sakura asked as she crossed her arms. "You love that jumpsuit. Kakashi even suggested you wear something that wasn't orange." Naruto shook his head. "Yeah, I know. I like orange, but I agree that it isn't good for blending in when we're in the forest. I just didn't have the money to change it at the time." "What were you spending all of your money on from our missions then?" Sakura wondered, crossing her arms in confusion. Naruto shrugged. "Rent. Food," he said noncommittally. Truth be told, he probably had enough money saved up to buy new clothes if he wanted to break into the fund he saved for emergencies. Although he hadn't been that desperate for new clothes. Although May's offer was incredible, and something he wasn't going to pass up. "Oh," Sakura said quietly as she looked away, slightly guilty. It was easy to forget that not everyone in their graduating class came from a prestigious clan or had both of their parents supporting them. Ino snapped her fingers to get Naruto's attention again. Hey, right here. So what is it you're looking for? Shinobi or casual? Naruto stood up straighter when Ino put on a tone that meant business. Shinobi. I need new clothes for the exams and after. I have sorta worn these out training these past couple weeks. Growing a bit taller didn't help much either, Naruto said. His jumpsuit was clinging now a little bit high and close above his ankles. Ino looked over Naruto, realizing that she was even looking up to him slightly more than before. Yeah, I guess you have grown a bit. She muttered to herself as she looked him over like a tailor. You are probably a bit taller than Sasuke's now. She continued to mutter. Naruto rolled his eyes at the mention of Sasuke. His disappearance with Kakashi would probably be a sore spot for a while, no matter how well his training was going with Mei. So what else? You must have something in mind that you are looking for. Ino continued as she took a step back to look over the blonde. Well, I was looking for something sleek, comfortable, and practical. I'd like dark colors so they work better on missions. And it has to have blue in there somewhere. Naruto listed off his thoughts. Oh, and maybe a hood or something to hide my hair. Naruto tacked on the end. Ino's head spun slightly in surprise. Well, that was really good, she said with a grin. Here, follow me. I know this store inside out, she said as she escorted the other blonde her age. Sakura fell in step alongside Naruto. So why the blue? She asked, making casual conversation as Ino slowly began to pull ahead of them. I think it would match my eyes well. Naruto lied. Sakura's eyes opened in intrigue. Oh? She began. I thought you were just trying to copy Sasuke or something, the pink-haired girl remarked with a shrug. Naruto scowled as he rolled his eyes. The world doesn't revolve around him, Sakura. Naruto grumbled. Sakura looked affronted. Hey. I didn't say that. I just thought you were going for his style because I couldn't make my own? Naruto asked bitterly. No. That's not it. He just has a good style, that's all, Sakura said defensively. What the hell has gotten into you? She fired back angrily. Naruto sighed and shook his head. You know Kakashi took Sasuke on a training trip for the month so that he could prepare him for the exams, right? Naruto questioned. Sakura shrugged her shoulders. Yes, so what? Sakura asked, still slightly heated. Where do you think that left me? Naruto fired back as it washed over Sakura. I'm sorry, Sakura said softly as it dawned on her. Naruto shrugged with a sigh. Not like it's your fault, Naruto muttered with a weak smile. This was the girl he had a crush on since he was a kid. Not the loud, fiery-tempered girl with a crush on his teammate. This was the soft-spoken but incredibly smart girl that he met while she was picking flowers years ago, being bullied by Ami. That moment reminded him of someone else quite well. Ino returned with a single outfit in her arms. Okay, you two. While you have been talking, I did all the heavy lifting here. But trust me, you're going to love this, she said as she dumped a set of clothes in Naruto's arms. Where is the blue? Naruto asked as he looked over the clothes. It was blacks and grays, but lacked the blue he needed. He wasn't going to go on an all-expenses-paid trip on someone else's money, and then not fulfill her one request. Ino slapped his arm. I'll get to that. Now put it on, she demanded. Naruto rolled his eyes with a sigh and stripped off his jumpsuit jacket, and quickly tossed his torn undershirt aside in quick succession, leaving two surprised but blushing girls standing next to him. Whether that was from embarrassment of being seen in a situation, or because of him, Naruto didn't know. What? Naruto asked. You told me to put it on. Ino palmed her face as she grabbed a dress on a hanger and held it up as high as she could like a curtain, which Sakura quickly followed suit. I meant in the changing room, you dumbass, Ino muttered as she forced herself to not look at the clueless blonde in front of her. Changing room? Naruto asked, confused. Sakura, however, despite the situation, looked amused at how clueless Naruto was, and was doing her best not to laugh by covering her mouth. Over there, Naruto. She gestured with a finger between giggles. Naruto immediately took a peek out from behind Ino's curtain only to catch sight of some of the other female staff staring at him in equal amusement. Naruto cringed. Sorry, he said as he quickly shuffled himself into the changing room with his new top clashing horribly with his jumpsuit pants. It was only when he stepped into the changing room and he heard the laughter of several women just outside that Naruto had one thought in mind. Oh, kill me, Naruto thought as he knocked his head against the wall. Ino moved with Sakura and sat down in the chairs just outside the changing room. I'm an idiot, Sakura said quietly. It didn't even occur to me that Naruto was probably training on his own these past 2 weeks. I probably could have done something to help him, Sakura said quietly. Ino sighed, forehead. Where have you been? You are just realizing that now? You haven't heard anything about what has been going on, have you? Ino asked as she crossed her legs and arms on the bench. What do you mean? Sakura asked in confusion. Didn't you hear about his encounter with Niji? Both my team and Guy's team were at the barbecue restaurant Chuji's family owns. Naruto and Niji both got at each other's throats. I mean, apparently Naruto claims that Niji attacked him the week before, not even in a spa or something like that. I don't really know the details on that though, Ino gossiped. Well, what happened? What did Naruto do? Sakura asked. Well, actually, Sakura, Naruto didn't really do much of anything. Both Naruto and Neji started firing insults back and forth, but Neji was the first one to break. He attacked Naruto, and he fell back into a table with guests seating at it. Ino whispered. I mean Sakura, that is huge. If Naruto reports Neji, then he can be disqualified for attacking a competitor outside of the tournament. His sensei even suggested that he do it. I can't believe I didn't hear about this. Sakura said surprised. Well yeah. I mean aren't you on a team with him? I mean how do you work together if you can never talk outside of work? Ino asked in disbelief. Sakura sighed, suddenly finding her shoes very interesting. I don't know. Sakura muttered, but it isn't Naruto's fault. Ino shrugged, well whatever forehead. I'm going to go into the armory section and get the last pieces that he is going to need. Sakura spun around on Ino. Armor? Since when do any of us wear armor, Ino? Ino did a little dance as she gave her friend a wink, since apparently we don't have a budget. Sakura was left to her thoughts, but not for long. Soon enough Ino and Naruto had returned from their tasks respectively. The moment he stepped out of the changing room, Ino had rushed over and practically smothered him. Hold steady, she said as she continued to pull at him. Oh come on Naruto, do you walk with those feet? She asked as she continued to tug him in this or that direction. Once the deed was done Sakura smiled. So how do you feel Naruto? She asked. Naruto gave a laugh, molested. He said bluntly, earning an elbow to the ribs courtesy of Ino. Tell him he looks hot, Ino said as she nodded her head in Naruto's direction. Naruto immediately flushed red at the statement. Sakura smiled in turn. You do look good Naruto. Sakura provided with a smile. The blonde's blush further increased as he rubbed the back of his head embarrassed. His stomach was doing flip-flops. Thanks Sakura-chan. Oh whatever, Ino said as she rolled her eyes. You look hot, Ino confirmed with a grin, and dangerous. You're welcome, she added with a grin. Naruto put up his hands. That was as much as he could take. Okay, Naruto said quickly with an equally large grin breaking out on his face. Thanks for helping me, Ino scoffed. PSH, you kidding me Naruto? What are friends for? Ino remarked with a smile before she pulled the blonde into a hug. Naruto's eyes widened briefly at the mention of friendship. He didn't even realize Ino considered him to be anything remotely close to a friend. Yeah, Naruto said with a smile, and in one of the rare displays he shared any physical affection with a person. The two pulled away and Naruto turned to look in the mirror now that Ino had finally finished his outfit. It was truly everything he had asked for from her and more. A dark gray hooded vest that was cut off at the shoulders with several buttons on the front that framed his torso before being tied off by his headband at the waist. Underneath that he wore a loose long-sleeve shinobi shirt that matched his pants. They would have been baggy if it weren't for all of Ino's additions to the outfit. At the cutoff of his shoulders were two shoulder plates with dark navy blue trim. Similar plates were also located on his forearms, and were the basis of his knee-high boots. The plates you are wearing were actually developed rather recently by the Konoha's Shinobi Science Division. They are a lightweight alloy that is flexible, non-reflective, and the forearm portion has properties specifically tailored to assist with chakra control. I heard you could use a bit of help with that, Ino explained with a smile. Naruto whistled to himself as he looked himself over in the mirror. I definitely owe you Ino, this is perfect. Ino smirked. I know. And I know, she said with a bit of sass. Naruto smiled. Hey, I don't want to run out on you, but I really need to get back to training for these matches. Ino said with her arms crossed in amusement. I put 3 more sets of the same clothes up at the front, and you're already rang up for what you're wearing. Naruto reeled at Ino in surprise. Really? Ino, you're amazing, Naruto said as they moved to the register. Haven't I already told you that I know? Come on now, get out of here, she teased finally as the blonde quickly paid for all of his items. Naruto chuckled. Yes ma'am, he said. Let me know if you ever need someone to go shopping with again, Ino yelled after him as he rushed off in his new threads. Time skip, 7 days till the finals. Naruto gave a heavy sigh as he walked down the street beside Mei. It was a sigh of relief. The training that he had been doing with Mei proved to help him incredibly so. Through the rather brutal physical training supplemented by medical chakra he was going through, his muscle had firmed up quite nicely. He felt significantly stronger than he ever had. His taijutsu had also improved dramatically under Mei's tutelage. His training with water manipulation had also improved. He could now manipulate the water through the air at quick speed, very similar to the way Gaara manipulated his sand. He had a feeling that his initial success was due to whatever chakra control properties were assisting him from his bracers. However, over the course of the week he had been able to replicate the level of control without his bracers. Needless to say, his control when he was wearing them was quite impeccable. However, he still found himself unable to move much when he manipulated water. That was the next mountain to climb on his list. Although on a more positive note, Mei loved the clothes. She remarked that with a mask he would probably look quite menacing. He filed that information away for a later date alongside Ino's comment of him looking dangerous. As Naruto walked down the street with Mei in step with him, he could barely suppress his grin. The thought that he had come so far in such little time? All he needed was the experience, and he knew that he would become quite the shinobi. This was something Mei also took time to acknowledge, and she even told him that she would try and figure out a way for Naruto to gain some more practical experience before the exams. Yet his happy and cheerful mood instantly turned cold as he rounded the corner on a restaurant. He then remembered exactly why he had been training, and why he had needed to get new clothes in the first place. The boy's words had cut deep, and while the scar no longer hurt, they were still there. Niji was sitting in the outside area of the barbecue restaurant where they had their last encounter. Naruto grit his teeth at the thought of the past encounters he had with the boy over the past month. Mei had caught eye of Naruto's sudden stop. "Naruto, save your anger for the arena. You are better than this. If you both get into a fight now, you both could be disqualified. You winning the tournament and achieving the rank of Chunin is more important than a street brawl, remember that." "Oh, I'll remember it. Although if he says anything to me, I will say something back. And if touches me again," Naruto ranted off. "Naruto. If he touches you again, do nothing. Konoha has laws for a reason, and they will uphold them. Your task of victory will become much easier if your opponent gets himself disqualified for his actions," Mei said as she gently squeezed Naruto's shoulder. Naruto tightened his jaw. "I can't wait to see this guy in the arena." Naruto ground through his teeth. Meantime at the table with Niji. The table was littered with several Konoha shinobi that had made it to the preliminary rounds of the exams. Kurenai's team was present with the exception of Hinata, who was still on the tail end of her recovery. Naturally, she was not the greatest fan of the Hyuga male sitting at the table, but she wasn't going to let that boy get in the way of her spending time with her boyfriend, Asuma, and letting her genin bond with other teams. Asuma had all of his genin here, and he had for the majority of the past week had a fourth member to his team in Sakura. Despite how much both Ino and Sakura fought each other in their rivalry over Sasuke, they still remained good friends. This only became even more evident after their battle at the preliminaries for the exam. Yet he had to admit, as bratty as the two could get, they were both rather amusing and fun company to have around. Especially with the fact that until just recently, both Shikamaru and Chuji were wrapped up with their families most of the time training. Shikamaru sat at the table leaning his head back over his chair. He was tired, and that much was obvious to everyone around the table. When his dad had found out that he had made it to the Chunin exams, despite the lazy attitude that they both shared, they had both decided to dive right into training for the finals. However, the day-to-day training wasn't so bad, at least until this week, where it had begun to take a toll on his chakra coils. It was one of the main reasons as to why he had free time right now to go out with his friends. He wasn't supposed to be training. From now on, he would just work on strategy with his dad at night before bed, and a bit more in the mornings before he went in to get his assignments for the day. Sakura and Ino spent their time at the table chatting amongst themselves. They both were throwing ideas back and forth about what exactly Sasuke was learning from Kakashi during this 1-month period, and what Naruto and the other competitors were up to. They hadn't heard or seen the blonde or the sand shinobi ever since they helped him pick out his new clothes and the preliminaries respectively. The final group gathered at the table were that of Guy's team, and Niji's younger cousin Hanabi. Lee, however, was still held up in the hospital gravely injured. The group were the most quiet of the bunch, but it was obvious that there was an underlying animosity between both teacher and student. Guy was struggling to support his student when his actions were as unyouthful as they could come. Crippling his cousin? Attacking fellow Konoha shinobi multiple times? Guy found it difficult to stand behind his student and support him when every instinct he had was telling him not to. The group sat at the table calmly talking. They had more than likely just finished eating and were just sitting around talking and drinking their sodas. Though the group's topic was of the gossip that the young graduates had continually been stumbling upon. "Niji, I still don't understand how you could do that. He wasn't even trying to attack you," Tenten said in frustration, her rose-tinted glasses regarding her teammates slipping off her face. Everyone at the table knew that the subject was extremely touchy for the weapon user, and that she felt extremely torn on trying to support her crush on the subject. Niji stayed silent and calmly took a sip of his tea before replying, "That boy runs around the village proclaiming how great he is, and how he will become Hokage. He is delusional, and an academic failure that needed to be put in his place before his own arrogance in his abilities will truly hurt someone. Throughout his entire shinobi career, he has talked so much yet trained so little. However, despite this, no one has said anything for whatever reason. It is time that someone put him in his place. Beyond that fact, Tenten, my actions don't require any defense. If you put me in the same scenario, I would do it again." The group stayed silent at that, Kurenai giving the boy narrowed eyes as she let his words sink in. "Oh, and is that how you felt about Hinata as well?" Kurenai fired back. However, before the group could continue down the rather toxic subject, Naruto walked into the barbecue restaurant, and suddenly everyone was forced to go through a level of déjà vu. "Back for more Naruto?" Niji said, immediately looking to get a rise out of the blonde. Mei gently clasped Naruto's shoulder as they continued to move on. "Don't pay attention," she whispered. "I see you have gotten yourself new clothes. It would be a shame if they got dirty again." Niji continued to taunt. Guy sat at the table, a pair of chopsticks snapping between his finger as he leveled a glare at his student. "Niji," Guy said in a warning voice. Although Niji continued, and finally dead last, you know your place. Although Guy wasn't the only one who had heard enough. Ino slammed her hand down on the table just as Tenten elbowed the boy in the ribs. Niji! Stop this, I am merely stating a fact. Niji said as he sat up straight in his seat and returned to his food. Naruto, who had been staying silent trying his best to control himself, shrugged out of Mei's grip and spun around to face the group. You know what? You don't get to call me that. Naruto said firmly. A failure? Niji shot back. Dead last. Naruto said firmly as he stepped forward. I hated that nickname in the academy when all of the other kids would call me that. And you know what? You have no right to call me that now. Niji was unfazed. Really dead last? The uptight Hyuga announced. Naruto's lips formed into a smirk. See, you're all talk. You talk down to me like you're better than me. You did the exact same thing with Hinata. Yet the truth is, you're not better than me. You're not worth my time. You keep trying to start these fights with me because you think I have something to prove, Niji. The truth is, the only time you are ever going to lay a hand on me is during this month is outside the arena. So you better get it out of your system now, before we meet in the exam. Niji's piercing eyes were locked onto Naruto as he looked him over. Truth? You speak of truth and fact, but you Uzumaki Naruto don't believe what you are saying. You talk big as well, Naruto, and hide yourself in new clothes. Yet you will still always be the dead last student of the academy that will never amount to nothing. Niji said coolly. Enough. Guy yelled. Naruto, if you wish it, you have my permission to challenge Niji to a duel right now, or I will gladly go with you to report his actions to the Hokage. Although if it is a duel you want, as his sensei, I accept on his behalf if you wish it. Guy said as he stood up, his eyes apologetic but brimming with both rage and disappointment. Naruto looked at Guy and smiled. That's alright, Guy. That's unnecessary. I'll just wait for the tournament. Naruto explained as he forced himself to turn around. You know that you wouldn't be the victor. You are already fated to lose that fight. Whether you choose to have it now or later doesn't matter. Naruto chuckled to himself. Whatever, Niji. Why fight here when only a portion of the village will see? Naruto said, finally brushing him off. Indeed. Whatever. Because a village orphan will never amount to anything, and certainly not Hokage. Niji said bluntly as Naruto surged back around. Stop it! Now! Hanabi, the younger sister of Hinata, yelled, standing up as Naruto was quickly approaching to get in Niji's face. Although in a familiar set of events as Naruto approached, Niji moved to strike. Niji launched up in an instant from his seat, his Byakugan activated and striking out with his hand in a familiar fashion, once again catching Naruto in the chest with his palm thrust. Although before anything could continue further, Guy quickly restrained Niji. Naruto had slid a few feet backwards with a wince. Although it wasn't the pain that hurt. The palm thrust was hard and chakra enhanced by the Hyuga family's typical Juken technique. The attack had outright torn a hole directly in the center chest piece of Naruto's new clothes. No! Ino cried out in anger as she saw her work torn to shreds. Not even a week! She cried out. Naruto grimaced and suddenly felt a great deal guiltier and unfortunate at the circumstance. The blow didn't hurt, but Ino's hard work being destroyed right in front of her did. Naruto! Guy called out as he dragged Niji away. Meet me at the Hokage Tower and I will personally be there to testify on Niji's actions here today. What my student has done here is against the law, and it will not be tolerated. Guy claimed. Naruto numbly nodded as he grabbed the tattered piece of cloth that was flapped over, exposing his chest. Alright. As Guy removed Niji from the vicinity by force, the rest of those gathered around fell into a period of silence at what had just transpired. Naruto sighed as he tore at his now ruined shirt. Well, I guess I'm going to go home and change. Naruto grumbled out. Mei, however, calmly fell in place beside Naruto, as she gently put a hand on his shoulder. She knew exactly what needed to be said to plant that initial seed of doubt within the blonde. So this is how Konoha displays its will of fire? I expected more. Mei asked just loud enough for both Naruto and the group gathered around to hear. As the duo left, the remainder of the group was left with a deal of guilt hanging over their shoulders. Silently in the corner, a look of suspicion is shared between both Kurenai and Asuma. Hinata! You made it! Kiba said quickly as he scooted over in his seat. Akamaru and I saved you some food. Hinata smiled as she looked out to the field. Down on the field was the sensei of Niji's team, Guy. He was standing alongside Naruto. Across from them was Niji, and a taller, equally wide-eyed man. Is that my father? Hinata asked in surprise. I thought I had missed their match, she said meekly. Kiba rolled his eyes as he took a large bite of a hot dog. You haven't missed anything. This would have been an interesting match if they could have started already, but they are already like 30 minutes delayed. Kiba grumbled. What happened? To their left, a Chunin with a white bandage over his nose piped in. When Niji had stepped out onto the field for his match, Guy had leapt down there to step in. Apparently due to Niji Hyuga and his repeated assault against his opponent during the month-long grace period for the exam, they have been trying to figure out if Niji is legally allowed to participate. Hinata's eyes widened in surprise. Niji attacked Naruto-kun? When did this happen? Kiba shrugged his shoulders as he scratched Akamaru under the chin, pretty much the past few weeks you've been in the hospital, Hinata. I thought Guy was going to help Naruto take care of this. The only thing it seems they have accomplished is getting a bunch of roster changes for this exam. It's driving the bookies crazy. Hinata's gaze fell down to her father and Naruto with worry. Is Naruto-kun still going to fight Niji-san? What is the new roster? The purple-haired girl asked quietly. The Chunin beat Kiba to the punch as he handed the girl a pamphlet. They passed these around 5 minutes ago. The Chunin provided. Chunin exam tournament. Due to impending disqualification, the following changes have been made. Bracket 1. Temari of the Desert vs. Kankuro of the Desert. Bracket 2. Gaara of the Desert vs. Aburame Shino. Bracket 3. Nara Shikamura vs. Kinyuta Dosu. Bracket 4. Uchiha Sasuke. Bracket 4.5. Uzumaki Naruto vs. Hyuga Niji. But this means that either Naruto or Niji have won more match than anyone else. Hinata realized. Perhaps it will teach these genin to take care of their matters before the big day. Although I understand where the blonde kid is coming from. Going up against one of the Hyuga clan, he doesn't stand a chance. Kiba grinned. Want to make a bet on that? This is ridiculous. You cannot just disqualify a member of my clan. Half of the incidents involved, Niji was doing his duty to the clan. He is supposed to defend my daughters with his very life. Without them, Konoha would no longer have a Hyuga clan. I was their Hayashi. I saw the actions of your nephew. My student. They were disgraceful to your clan, and to Konoha. Guy proclaimed angrily. I personally escorted Naruto to the Hokage Tower this week to take care of this matter before today, however the Hokage was busy with other matters. Guy explained as he gave Genma a knowing look. Although Hayashi appeared to be none the wiser. And you filed a complaint, yes? I saw the complaint. It is preposterous. Someone of my family would never be so dishonorable. I believe that it is in fact you, Mato-san, that is angry at the fate of your prize student not being in these exams, and my nephew is. This has nothing to do with Lee. This has everything to do with Niji's unyouthful actions this past month. Had my message been addressed, we wouldn't be having this discussion. The message was received and ignored. The reply I had delivered to you said as much. If this incident truly occurred multiple times, then Uzumaki-san would have stepped forward after the first encounter. He wouldn't have waited until days before the exam to make these accusations. Are you suggesting I am a liar, Hayashi? There were witnesses. Guy proclaimed coolly. The eyes of two masters of very different martial arts opposing one another. I am suggesting that with recent circumstances that your judgment in matters such as these should come into consideration. Guy gave one of his rare truly displeased looks as he turned to Genma. You don't truly believe this, do you? I would never testify against my own student unless I felt the matter was just. Genma rolled his saban in his mouth as he looked at the two adults lazily. Look. I wasn't there. I don't know who is telling the truth. We have already switched the brackets around at random to give both parties involved unfavorable positions in the tournament. However, what I can tell you is that you both are holding up a rather expensive tournament, and making the crowd rather unhappy. The proctor said in an uninterested tone. But how is that fair? Guy asked. You punished Naruto for the actions of a single individual. This wasn't even his fault. Guy proclaimed outraged. Not that these changes will change the outcome of this battle. It was decided the moment our names were drawn together. Niji piped in from the silence. Naruto scoffed. It's alright, Guy-san. It's like we saw at the Hokage's office. I told you nothing would happen. But thank you for your effort. I'm ready to just get these matches on their way. Naruto said politely. But Naruto, Guy began as Naruto held up a hand. Look, I get it, Guy, but I have no desire to see some form of symbolic justice. I feel a need for actual justice. These people see me and think I'm weak. They want to take care of me. But I can take care of myself. Naruto said firmly as his eyes locked on Niji. Hayashi shook his head in irritation. Well, if this incident is finally out of the way, I will return to my youngest in the stands. He said with a formal bow. Niji? He addressed simply with a nod before he made his exit. Guy's exit, however, took longer as he turned on the young Hyuga. Win or lose, Niji, we are not done. Guy said coolly. Genma twirled his saban once again with his mouth. Alright, you two, get in the center of the arena and I'll count you in. The two young boys walked off, both of them ready to begin their awaited match. The two of them had their eyes locked on each other. The tension was visible to anyone that had seen any encounter between the two of them over the course of the month. Others in the stands probably wondered about their impending disqualification. Genma. Guy addressed quietly before he made his leave. HN? The Jounin sounded off around the saman. Be ready to step in if the match becomes out of hand. Guy said firmly with complete seriousness in his eyes. Genma's eyes widened briefly before he numbly nodded his head as Guy vanished in a swirl of leaves. You got anything to say to me? Niji asked as they waited for the match to be counted in, a smirk plastered on his face. Naruto stood across from him in a set of his new clothes, his eyes icy and firm. A whole lot, actually, he said loudly, his voice carrying up to the now nearly silent arena. At first I made a promise to Hinata that I would win for what you did to her. However, now it is more than that. Is it because I called you a failure? It is your destiny to lose this match, Uzumaki Naruto. Everyone in the stands knows this. An academic failure will never go on to be Hokage. The odds are grossly stacked against you. Niji in his typical pretentious and condescending tone of voice. You claim to know so much about me that after our last encounter I decided to look into your own history. You talk a lot about destiny for someone without any control of their own. Born and branded a slave. While it is entirely possible that I will never go on to become Hokage, you will never be more than a slave to your family. Naruto said as Niji bristled at the word slave. However, if you think that just because I may not become Hokage that I can't beat your ass up and down this arena, come take the first swing. You seem to be pretty good at that. Naruto said as he extended his chin. Niji's eyes were narrowed and hardened as the veins appeared at the side of his eyes, signifying the activation of his Byakugan. You know nothing of what you speak of, Niji said as he settled into a fighting stance. Although I will take great pleasure in your look of despair as you realize that your foolish vow is impossible to keep. Do you two plan to stand here and talk all day? Genma said as he plucked his saban from his mouth. Niji smirked in response, knowing he had said his piece. Naruto, however, briefly scanned the arena with his gaze, hoping to find sight of Mei. She had said that she would be running a bit late for the tournament, but that he better not lose during the first match. Otherwise, she would be pretty disappointed that she spent all month training him for that. Although when it quickly became apparent that Mei in all of her blue glory wasn't in the stands, Naruto turned back to Niji. I just want to say one more thing. You claim to know me. People claim to know me. The truth is you don't. You think you had a tough childhood because your dad is gone? You. Living in your rich house babysitting your richer cousins. I grew up an orphan. Few people gave a shit about me and what I was doing with my life. However, I turned it around as best as I could, and I became a ninja. Naruto said loudly. This wasn't just a Niji. This was something he had wanted to say to everyone that had doubted him, or called him names for a long time. I may not have earned myself good grades. I didn't even go to class that often. I was too busy vandalizing people's things for attention. Like you, I may not have respected the law, but I submitted to it when I was caught. Yet here you are caught and called out by your own sensei, and you hide behind your family's name as they bail you out of trouble you started because you come from some kind of royalty. Know that when this is said and done that you had asked for this. Naruto finished coolly as he gave a nod to the proctor. Niji smirked in response to Naruto's speech. Not everyone is created equal. Life isn't fair, I know. Genma looked between the two of them before he called the match. Begin. Nice of you to join us, Guy. The silver-haired Jounin remarked with a grin behind his mask. Looks like I'm not late for once. I'm not in the mood, Kakashi. Guy said seriously as he leaned against the railings to look over the starting fight. You do realize that you're only on time because the rest of the tournament was postponed, right? Kurenai stated as she crossed her arms. Kakashi smiled. That just means I should have spent more time at the barbecue place I stopped at on the way. Asuma groaned loudly from the right. I've seen that place more than enough this month. Sounds like there is a story there. The scarecrow pried. Asuma took a drag on his cigarette before he spoke on the exhale. Long story short, Niji encountered Naruto the first week out of the preliminaries, and each consecutive week Guy's student attacked Naruto at the barbecue place in front of all of us. Asuma said in a single breath before coughing on the last bits of smoke. Kakashi gained a surprised look. Why did that happen? Didn't Ebisu and Guy step in? Ebisu? Ebisu-san wasn't with Naruto. He wasn't? Then who trained Naruto this month? Kurenai laughed at the question. I can't believe you have more students in this final than any of us when you blatantly neglect them. I didn't neglect them. I asked Ebisu to train Naruto this month because I told Sasuke I would help him with managing his Sharingan with his recent curse mark. Kakashi explained. Oh, so you just play favorites? Because that worked out so well for Team 7s in the past. Kurenai remarked unamused. Kakashi turned away from the woman as he shifted his headband uncomfortably. So he was really on his own. Kakashi asked with guilt. Guy spoke up for the first time since he arrived. No, there was a woman. A woman? Kakashi repeated. Do you have a name? Do you know what she taught him? Off to the side, Asuma's cigarette fell out of his mouth as he watched the fight. Probably that. He muttered. Naruto charged forward the moment the match was called after throwing a volley of kunai. You idiot! A frontal attack will never work. Kiba's voice yelled over the stadium as Naruto continued to charge. Niji deflected a blow from Naruto with ease, forcing him to the left. The blonde sprung back and spun his leg around, hoping to connect his heel with Niji's jaw. Although the attack ended in immediate failure as the blonde boy continued his assault. Naruto, watch out! Sakura cried from the balcony beside Ino. Naruto was being played right into Niji's hands. In a familiar fashion, a palm thrust slammed into Naruto's chest the moment Niji closed the distance. Naruto recoiled, sliding back as Niji pressed his advantage with a single juken strike, aiming downward, making contact with the blonde's bicep. Naruto cringed and gasped out in pain as he rolled backward from the attack. Although the damage had already been done, you made many claims only to have your chakra sealed in your right arm. Niji mocked. I hope you weren't planning on using any jutsu, Naruto. Naruto's face contorted in anger. I'm going to kick your ass. He yelled animatedly as he rushed forward once again. Man, this will be dull. Shikamaru grumbled as he leaned against the railing overlooking the exam from the competitor's box. It should be obvious now that a head-on attack will never work against someone like Niji. I hope I don't have to watch Naruto beat his head into a wall for however long this match lasts. Maybe it's just to be expected. Konoha shinobi aren't that smart after all. Temari, the blonde of the desert trio, remarked. I thought that was a blonde trait. Shikamaru quipped back in disinterest as Temari bristled and turned away from pineapple-haired boy. I believe there is more to Naruto than we have seen yet. The Aburame clan member stated before characteristically pushing up his glasses. And what makes you say that, Shino? The lazy genius continued to grumble. All of us in this room have spent the last month training for this event. Naruto has not displayed any technique, not even his clones. Perhaps he is planning something. Shino suggested. Shikamaru rolled his eyes. I'm pretty good friends with Naruto. Naruto and plans are usually mutually exclusive. If you believe that, then you don't really know him that well. Naruto's teammate said from his position near the back of the room. He stood in the shadows, his eyes closed and arms crossed, uninterested in the fight going on below. Must be nice not having any worries, Sasuke. No matter who you end up fighting, you will get someone already tired out from their match. The perks of running late, I suppose? Naruto will be fine by the time our match starts. In the other corner of the room, Kankuro of the desert stepped forward. What makes you so sure that he is going to win his match? Sasuke grinned. Like I said, if you think that Naruto is going to lose to anyone but me, you don't know him very well. Shikamaru let his head hit the rail. I wish I had the energy to be that arrogant. He muttered. Shino lowered his glasses with a raised eyebrow as he leaned in closer to get a better look. It appears that Sasuke may in fact be correct, Shikamaru. The sound ninja Dosu attracted everyone's attention as he said, I thought that ability was only capable of being done by your Nidaime Hokage. The definition of insanity is performing the same action over and over again expecting a different outcome. Your delusions of grandeur suddenly make sense if this is your intended tactic to defeat me. Niji poised as he went through the familiar series of blocks. You are still the loud, incompetent, dead last shinobi from the academy. Niji said as one of his blocks sent Naruto to the ground. Naruto swung out with his foot, following through the same assault he had just completed. However, where the assault had ended the past 2 times, this one did not. As Niji moved in to strike Naruto with his palm, the blonde chopped downward through the air with his hand. Overhead, a large and heavy pool of water immediately materialized and slammed down on Niji's crown. Niji stumbled forward from the unexpected attack, earning himself a rather brutal knee to the face. Naruto grabbed Niji by the end of his long hair as another bolt of water flew at him from the right when he was unable to run. It crashed into him violently, and would have pushed him a great distance if it weren't for Naruto's hold on him. Thunk! As the water attempted to carry Niji away, Naruto yanked him back and once again leaving the Hyuga boy prone. Niji scrambled for one of the kunai he had discarded earlier from Naruto's assault, and cut right through his hair at the end in a single slash before he sprang backwards. Although the onslaught of water didn't stop as it followed Niji. Every motion of a punch or a kick Naruto performed let out an onslaught of water in Niji's direction. Niji deflected each bolt of water with a chakra-enhanced palm that splatted the water away with significant force. However, the moment the onslaught of water became too much, water began to slam against Niji's body and stick to his glowing blue form. Soon Niji began spinning stationary in a circle as a large dome of chakra was released from his body, grinding out a crater in the wet soil. How? Niji said in shock, his eyes narrowing. While you were babysitting your cousin this past month, eating barbecue and causing fights, I was training. Naruto returned. It is amazing what can be accomplished with a little motivation. Naruto said as he stood in a relaxed stance. What do you want me to say, Naruto? Do you want me to lie to you and tell you that your matches in this tournament will be easy now with your new abilities? They won't. I know a lot about the Byakugan and I have seen its uses in battle, Naruto. It is very powerful. Your best bet would be to lead your opponent into a false sense of security, and punish him with your element of surprise. Yet if your opponent was able to beat a member of the main branch family, there is no telling what type of techniques he may be hiding. Naruto tightened his jaw as he looked at the crater that had formed at the boy's feet. May had been right. He hadn't expected that. You were holding back all this time. Niji gasped out as he collected his breath again. He reached up to a warm wet trickle that was running down his face. Touching the crimson blood, he wiped his forehead with the back of his hand. However, I won't make the mistake of underestimating you again, Uzumaki Naruto. You squandered the only chance you had to defeat me. Naruto's eyes remained firm and cold. Now that I know about his control over water, I can look out for it. Although I can no longer afford to wait for him to come to me. I may run out of energy before him if I choose to do that. Niji thought to himself. I need to strike fast. I can defeat him in close. If I can close the tenketsus in his arms, his manipulation will go with them. Niji charged in with impressive speed yet remained graceful. Every second he was advancing. 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 It was a dance. Each bolt of water that came his way was avoided with incredible speed and flexibility. Duck. Weave. Move to the left. Flip. The closer he advanced to Naruto, the faster the water bolts started flying, and the greater their precision. Niji flipped inward past 2 bolts that streamed his way before going to the ground for a sweep. Naruto dodged the first strike, but the 2 Tenketsu strikes that Niji followed with struck the blonde painfully in his thigh and abdomen. Naruto stumbled back from the strikes. Niji continued his advance. Water bolts continued to fly at him from the sides that he would have to leap over or duck. Although with each strike that he was able to place, the blonde's control would waver over the water. Niji smirked as he let loose a series of strikes at the blonde's chest. The wince of pain that went across his face was enjoyable. His shoulder pads and bracers made it difficult to target his arms, but this was the next best thing. Niji slapped his leg, bending it crudely to the side. A vicious kick sent Naruto sprawling backwards across the dirt. "So much for not letting me hit you," Niji muttered as he pressed his advance. Naruto stood slowly and injured. Gentle fist art 8 trigrams 64 palms. Niji announced as he slid into one of the rare fighting stances of the Hyuga clan. "You are within range." Niji narrowed his eyes as across from him Naruto mirrored the exact stance that Niji had fallen into. "Your mockery of the technique will only make your defeat all the more humiliating," Niji announced as he took one step forward, and Naruto mirrored him in sync. Niji smirked as Naruto mirrored another one of his steps. "See how long you will be able to keep your mimicry up." Niji spun himself in to close the distance as Naruto mirrored his actions. 8 trigrams 2 palms, Niji announced as he launched his first 2 strikes. Although Niji's eyes widened as Naruto had copied the exact same movements as his fingers connected directly with Niji's. 4 palms, Niji announced, brushing it off as a fluke. A feeling of dread crept up within Niji as he only connected with fingertips once again. 8 palms, 16 palms, 32 palms. The crowd was on their feet to see down into the arena at what was unfolding before them. "This is impossible. He is going through the movements before he even sees that I am doing them. He isn't copying them. He's performing them," Niji realized as he called out, 8 trigrams 64 palms. The moment the technique was over with, Niji stood in shock before getting a vicious punch delivered directly to his jaw. "It's not possible. He is not an Uchiha," Niji thought as he was knocked flying through the air backwards. Hanabi groaned before cracking her knuckles. "I will deal with this one, father," Hanabi said casually as she hopped out of her seat. Hayashi had snapped from the battle unfolding to his daughter. "Deal with what, Hanabi?" Hayashi asked incredulously. Hayashi's youngest daughter stretched her arms across her chest. "You saw what happened down there. First Niji using main branch techniques, now someone not even a part of the clan using them? Who do you think is responsible for that? It is our duty as members of the main branch to defend our secrets. You always taught me that," Hanabi said as she completed her stretching. Hayashi's gaze softened. "Indeed I did, Hanabi, but this is not your place. That is a duty for the head of the clan." Hanabi put her hands on her hips. "So, I intend to take your place one day, father, and make you proud. These are things that I will have to do. Why can't I start now?" Hayashi sighed as he tried his best to pay attention to his daughter as the exciting fight continued to unfold. "Because Hanabi, that day is far away. Then there is still your sister, who is your eldest." "So what? She may be a year older than me, but she is not stronger than me," the 14-year-old Hyuga princess stated bluntly. "Hanabi, strength is not the only thing that matters." "Of course not," Hanabi said, shaking her head. "You have taught me that things such as respect and honor also matter. And that matters right now. I also taught you to respect your elders. Then should I get my sister to do it? Because she has trouble confronting a spider in the corner of her room," Hanabi declared bitterly. "Hanabi, sit down," Hayashi declared as people began to stare at their argument. Hanabi scoffed. "I'm going for a walk. Go ahead and watch this fight that makes our clan look like a joke." "Hanabi!" Hayashi called after his fiercely independent daughter. Niji stood up as Naruto walked forward like a predator stalking its prey. Quickly Niji reached into his pouch and launched a shuriken with each step he took. Naruto, mirroring Niji's own skill earlier at dodging bursts of water, ducked under and sidestepped the oncoming shuriken with ease. Niji closed in with a desperate palm strike aimed at the blonde's chest. Although the attack never connected as Naruto's hand snapped out with equal speed and caught the Hyuga by the wrist. In Naruto's free hand he spun a kunai down to poise it at Niji's neck and earn the win. Niji grit his teeth as the moment the kunai would have been close enough to count for a victory, a blue glowing layer of chakra appeared just above Niji's skin. "You think you are the only one willing to do whatever it takes?" Niji yelled to Naruto as he broke his own arm within the blonde's grip before he rapidly began to spin as blue chakra emanated from his body. "Kaiten, Naruto-kun!" Hinata gasped at the sight. "Get out of there, you idiot!" Kiba yelled as he leapt out of his seat. "Geez, that Niji kid. That's not how you go and make Chunin." The bandaged Chunin muttered. "Might be a way to win though," his friend remarked. The bandaged Chunin rolled his eyes as he looked over to the 2 emotional teens beside him. "No. Not really. Kid won't stand a chance with a broken arm." Niji held his broken arm painfully as the dust died down from his kaiten. His attack had made another crater in the ground where he stood. Across from him Naruto stood tall, but his clothes were pretty beat up and ragged. Red spots signifying blood were beginning to appear underneath his clothes. It was obvious that the last kaiten had done some damage. "I can't believe I am about to lose this battle. How could he have known the 8 trigrams technique?" No one outside of the main branch family knew that technique until me. Niji cursed, if I am going to lose, I will make it so that he can no longer compete either. Niji thought with his jaw tightened in pain. Naruto began another slow predatory walk towards Niji as the young Hyuga struggled to get into another fighting stance. Although that didn't seem to be a pace Niji agreed with, Niji charged forward with a battle cry as his impressive footwork whirled him into a spinning mass of chakra in an instant as he closed in on Naruto. At this range there was no way the blonde could possibly dodge the technique. However, the moment Niji would have made contact with Naruto, the blonde boy extended his hand as Niji abruptly stopped his spin. Niji's eyes opened wide in shock. How? Kakashi, prepared to go down there with me and end the match if Genma cannot do it on his own, Guy said as he stood up straighter at the sight. His words immediately sent his friends into alarm. What do you mean, Guy? Asuma said in surprise. Look, the match is over already. Niji gasped out. He can't keep using that cadence so freely, not at his age. I don't mean to just stop the match, I mean in case we must stop Naruto, Guy said as he grabbed onto a pillar preparing to launch himself into the arena. You can't be serious, Kakashi muttered with an incredulous look. You weren't there, Kakashi. You don't understand, Guy said bluntly as he recalled the brief time he spent with Naruto that month. I am terribly sorry, Naruto. I have tried to do all I can to get an audience with the Hokage over this incident, but everywhere I have gone he is said to be busy. I submitted an incident report to the tournament organizers, but I have yet to get a response from them on the matter. And we won't get one, Guy. You don't get it. If you don't come from a powerful family or clan, if you don't have parents willing to go through hell to see that you are treated fairly, you get walked on. Like every system, those in power stay in power. Those with less get screwed, Naruto said bitterly. That's not true, Naruto. We hold people accountable for their actions here in Konoha. You want to be Hokage. You know this. Oh, trust me, I know. Naruto laughed. I can't get away with a harmless prank without being disciplined. But I also have no one in Konoha looking out for me. I have no parents, no family. The Hokage is too busy to address my issue. My sensei took my teammate on a personalized training trip. The people that should be looking out for me are not. I'm on my own, but you're not alone, Naruto. You have friends that care about you. They do not support what Niji did the other day. They don't support it, but they don't stand against it either. How many times must it happen before something is done? Once? Twice? 3 times? More? Or will it ever happen? Naruto. No, Guy, Naruto said as he held up his hand, but thank you for your help. However, I no longer need it. I realize now that no punishment will be given for Niji's actions. That a boy who comes from a rich family that holds a lot of power and bureaucratic pull will never have any consequences for his actions. I am not going to sit here and hope that somebody hears my plea for help. I have heard, Naruto. I will help. I will solve this. Maybe not now, maybe not tomorrow, but I will solve this. You won't face Niji in this match, I promise you, Guy said as he extended a hand to the youthful blonde. Naruto looked down at the offered hand before hesitantly accepting it. Guy, don't make promises you aren't sure you can keep. I want you to know that I am grateful for your help. However, if no one is going to hold him responsible with the law, I will outside of it, Naruto said with an iron gaze. You didn't think you were the only one that could manipulate chakra, did you? Think Niji, we learned about this earlier in the exams, Naruto whispered. Niji's eyes widened further as he thought back over the course of their fight. The sound ninja. Our bodies are 70% water. You control water, Niji muttered as he began to piece things together. But how? You need chakra to control it. I saw that. You did see that, Niji. I knew you would. Naruto continued to whisper so that the stadium would not hear their conversation. The Byakugan can see everything within its near 360-degree field of vision, even chakra. Yet no matter how special they are, Niji, they are just eyes, and there is one place that you wouldn't think to look, Naruto explained. Niji thought over the course of their fight only for his eyes to widen further in shock. It's impossible. The 8 trigrams technique? Naruto smirked. You said earlier that I told you I wasn't going to get hit. Well, that was foolish of me. I realized over this past week that if I was going to intend on seeing justice that I would need to make sacrifices even if that meant my word. Niji's eyes were stuck in shock as he thought through their entire fight. Every time I hit him. Every time I attacked him. Every time I blocked his chakra. It was all leading to this. My sensei Kakashi always told me I needed to focus on my chakra control. So I took that suggestion and spent the entire month focusing solely on that. These are the results. Every attack I landed. As I was pushing chakra into you, you were forcing chakra into me. The one place I never looked, never thought to. Niji realized, by the time I had finally attacked you with the 8 trigrams technique, you already had your chakra within me. I wasn't missing my technique. You didn't know it. You controlled it. You used your chakra to force me to miss my technique so that you could force more chakra into me. You're controlling my blood. You had this fight won from the moment my technique failed. Niji finished in shock as his body remained rigid and unable to move from Naruto's control. Why didn't you just win there? Because as you said, I wanted to take great pleasure in your look of despair as you realized that your foolish vows were impossible to keep," Naruto said coldly as he flung both arms outward like a puppeteer controlling invisible strings. There was a sickening crunch as Niji's finger bent backwards on his uninjured arm before a loud crack was heard from a painful break of his forearm. "Naruto! You've won the match!" Guy called out as he was on the ground in an instant, his hand quickly latching firmly onto Naruto's arm. "You can let him go," Guy finished in a whisper. Naruto let out a breath as he walked away and Niji crumbled to the ground in an injured heap moaning in pain. Genma's uninterested gaze was now firm as he shuffled the saban to the other side of his mouth. "That was rather cold. Was it really necessary? No colder than he is to his own family." Genma sounded off before he gestured to Naruto, "Winner, Uzumaki Naruto." Naruto smiled weakly at the stadium stands that broke out in cheers. The roar of the crowd was almost deafening. He could also see the few faces in the crowd that were shocked still. Gamblers that had likely lost a great deal of money on a bet they made. "Naruto, I have a lesson of my own I would like to give," a voice called out from behind Naruto. The blonde spun around to the recognizable voice with a cold look. "No, Kakashi," Naruto said bluntly as he made his way to the stairs leading back up to the stands. Kakashi frowned as he looked over to his friendly rival assisting a student of his onto a stretcher for a second time. "I hope you talked to him, Kakashi. The way he treated that kid after he already won." Genma trailed off. Kakashi nodded. "Naruto!" Ino yelled as she immediately got in the blonde's way as he arrived back up in the stands. Trailing quickly behind her were Chuji and Sakura. "Seriously? This is 2 outfits," she said angrily as she proceeded to roughly dust the blonde off before she looked at her ripped masterpiece. Naruto flushed as several of the adults and families that had come to watch the matches looked upon the two in amusement. "Yeah. Sorry, Ino," Naruto said, rubbing the back of his head. "Yeah, well, you better be," Ino grumbled. "But hey, good job. He deserved that ass kicking," Ino said with a grin as she kept pace with Naruto as they met up with the group in front of the senseis of Team 8 and 10. Both Chuji and Sakura gave their congratulations as Naruto joined the small group of students and senseis. "Indeed, congratulations are in order, Naruto. I am sure that Hinata will be happy with your victory. Good job on keeping your word out there," Kurenai, the sensei of Team 8, provided with a smile. "I kept most of it," Naruto quipped. "That was a pretty impressive thing you did out there with the water," Asuma said around his cigarette. "How did you learn to do that?" "That is the type of thing people even our age only hear stories of." Naruto grinned a bit at the praise. "Well, it takes a lot of chakra control." "Naruto, I thought you didn't like working on chakra control?" Sakura asked curiously. "I don't. But I originally didn't have anyone training me this month, so I worked on what I knew. About halfway through the month I learned how to do that." Sakura winced. "Sorry, I forgot." Naruto shrugged. "Can't change it now. There's no point in talking about it. How about we talk about how I'll never help you buy new clothes again if all you do is go out and wreck them. You know my outfit? Guess how long I have had that? A full year. You destroy 2 of them within weeks." Ino shook her head. "Never again." Naruto grinned. "I'll be sure to ask someone else if I have an all-expenses-paid shopping trip next time." Ino's eyes widened briefly, on second thought. "You can ask me? But you already owe me one, alright? Like a gift or something." "That doesn't sound that fair, Ino," Chuji said between handfuls of chips. "Oh, shut up, Chuji. He's right, Ino. It's not right to tell Naruto that he owes you one when you decided to help him buy his clothes because he was a friend," Asuma said with a smile. "Oh, whatever, Asuma-sensei. You're just saying that because you don't know how to buy a gift for your girlfriend," Ino fired back, waving her hand dismissively. Asuma practically choked on his cigarette as Kurenai started laughing lightly under her breath. The entire group had rather amused grins. "Alright, Ino, what would you like for the help?" "Flowers," Ino said instantly. "Oh, and chocolate," she tacked on. "Flowers and chocolate? That sounds like relationship gifts, Ino." "Good idea," her sensei teased. Ino flushed. "Get some for Sakura too." She helped. "You know, fair is fair," she trailed off, suddenly finding the introductions to the second match really interesting. Kurenai, however, seemed to join in on the girl's embarrassment. "Doesn't your family own a flower shop in the village, Ino? Seems like someone is making excuses to try and get someone's attention." "Ugh, hi, shut up," Ino groaned over the side of the rails. Asuma snorted. "Someone didn't think that one through," Asuma said as he gave a wave to the approaching Jounin. "Welcome back, Kakashi. Nice job with your student. I think I may need to be paying up after all." Kakashi nodded weakly at the welcoming as his gaze fell on Naruto before looking through the rest of the group that had gathered. Chuji stopped his munching. "You guys bet on us?" "Yeah," Asuma said upon exhale. "We had a small pot going on who had the students that were going to go farthest in the exam." Chuji shook his head. "Oh, that was a bad bet, Asuma-sensei. Shikamaru is going to give up. This tournament is too much trouble for him," Chuji said as he resumed inhaling his bag of chips. "Really?" Kurenai asked as she shifted her gaze on the chain smoker. Asuma grinned around his cigarette. "The kid is smart, but he's rather lazy." A brief silence fell over the group as they watched the Kankuro forfeit his match to his sister Temari. "Naruto, can we talk?" Kakashi asked over the boos of the stadium as the group continued to watch the arena matches. Naruto scoffed, I'd really rather not. Why? The crowd deafened the group standing at the railings as Shino Abirame forfeited his match against Gaara of the Desert. Kurenai frowned, he did the right thing. There is always next year, without an opponent such as him. The shuffling of the tournament roster really hurt him. She muttered to Asuma. Naruto turned back to Kakashi. Why? Because apparently I only have one match ahead of me, if that. I actually want to get the chance to eat before I have 3 more matches to deal with in a row. Kakashi frowned as he crossed his arms at the display. Then let me get you something to eat. Perhaps I can help you with strategy over food. Actually, Kakashi-san, I believe I have that covered. A woman said politely from behind the group, descending from the steps. May, I remember seeing you with Naruto this past month. Kurenai voiced politely as she greeted the newcomer. Yes, I remember you both. May said with a smile. You are the senseis of the students we saw at the barbecue restaurant, correct? It seems that Naruto was able to give the boy what he deserved. That is still up for discussion. Kakashi said with his arms crossed firmly. How do you know who I am? May tilted her head. Know you? Besides the fact that you are the notorious Hatake Kakashi, the copy ninja, I spent this past month training Naruto. He told me about how you decided to spend the month training your other student. May revealed. Really? Is that what he told you? Kakashi said as he leveled his stare on Naruto. The truth? Naruto fired back heatedly. Naruto. I left Ebisu to train you this month. Kakashi began as he gestured to Kurenai and Asuma. We never anticipated the success of our genin teams in their first exam. Most genin that enter the exams for the first time never make it past the written stage, let alone the second stage of the exams. There was even a preliminary round added to weed out the genin further this year. Kakashi explained. Is there a point to all of this? I told you I didn't want to talk, and I wanted to go eat. Naruto said in anger. Naruto, I had to make a choice. I couldn't train you both. Really? Somehow I find that hard to believe. The things I taught Sasuke this month, I couldn't teach you, Naruto. You don't have the affinity for it, so instead you simply chose Sasuke over me. That's fair, right? Naruto asked in anger. I mean, why not train us in something you could train both of us in? It's not like we were even in the same bracket. Naruto continued before he held up his hand. Oh, and before you might start. If you can only train us one at a time, you shouldn't be a teacher. Those gathered around were watching the scene unfold as wide-eyed onlookers. Asuma had even lightly whistled to himself as he turned his attention back to his student going down to the arena floor for his match. Kakashi sighed heavily as he dropped his head. Look, Naruto, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I made a judgment call. You made a mistake. But if you want to go ahead and make judgment calls that involve you turning your back on me, you don't get to stand here and criticize the ones I make. Naruto. Sakura yelped in surprise as the argument continued to grow. Naruto was nearly red in anger, as it just kept spilling out. Well, this fight looks like it is going to take a while. Kurenai attempted to change the subject as her eyes darted between the gathered party. Well, thank Kami for that. Naruto grumbled as he snatched the food May had brought over for him before storming off. Although before he even got 5 steps away he spun on his heel. Oh, and you know what? You told me from day one that those who break the rules are trash, but those who abandon their comrades are worse than that. Well, guess what? Neji broke the rules. Guess what you did? Naruto finished as he stormed off in anger. Kakashi sighed and shook his head with a look of remorse. Awfully convenient for you to stumble upon Naruto like that. The man whispered as Naruto continued on his way. May gave a smile. Well, unlike what you may believe, I didn't find Naruto or seek him out. He found me, and asked me for help because he claimed he had no one else to turn to. Kakashi adopted a guilty look as May casually walked away following after Naruto. I hope you know you deserve that, Kakashi. Kurenai spoke up briefly, tearing her attention from the match below. Imagine if Minato had chosen to train Obito over you, and how you would have felt. Kakashi winced at the thought. I thought Ebisu would have trained him, Kakashi muttered as he watched May and Naruto retreat into the stands. Kakashi. Asuma addressed through the cigarette between his lips. You do realize that Naruto knocked Ebisu unconscious with a naked henge, right? There was a whole incident with my nephew Konohamaru. You can't expect the boy to train with a man he can't respect. I thought Naruto was just saying that to try and get me to train him. That actually happened? The copy ninja asked, both in surprise and disappointment. Kakashi-sensei, what else did you say to Naruto before you left to go train Sasuke? He has been like this the whole month, even when me and Ino helped him buy his new clothes. Sakura asked meekly, knowing she was butting into a conversation between her superiors. Well, Naruto, of the 3 students that I teach in the Team 7, you're the one with the worst basic skills. Have him teach it to you thoroughly this time. Kakashi winced as the memory replayed over in his head. I told him he needed to work on his chakra control. Don't worry, Sakura, I made a mistake, but I will fix this. I promise. Kakashi said as he gave his best smile, gently squeezing the young genin's shoulder. Sakura nodded meekly. I hope so, sensei. I don't know what got into him, but he wasn't being himself this past month. Kakashi nodded, filing away the information. Although he had gathered a bit of that himself, Chuji, who had been sitting off to the side munching on his bags of chips, finally spoke up for the first time. Well, what if Naruto is just acting how he normally would? Like, what if he is just more confident in his abilities now after training? Chuji asked. The group fell silent at that thought, resigning to watch the match play out between Shikamaru and Dosu. You know that you could try and resolve your problems with your sensei with a bit more tact, Mei said as she slid into a seat next to the blonde teen. If you followed me to take his side, I am really not in the mood. Naruto grumbled as he continued to go through the food Mei had given him. Occasionally people would walk by and give the blonde nods of respect for his previous match, bringing the briefest of smiles to Naruto's face. It has nothing to do sides, Naruto. If there was one, I would be on yours. You could finish this tournament in first place, and then what? What if you end up not getting promoted, and end up returning to your team? Then I would get a transfer. If I win the tournament, any team should want me. Running isn't the answer to your problems, Mei gently reprimanded. It seemed like it was Kakashi's answer for this month. Run off. Screw what happens to me. Not even the slightest bit of regret, Naruto said sourly before he set aside his empty bowl. That isn't true, Naruto. Sometimes in life people make a choice between what they feel is right and what is easy. For someone who isn't taking sides, you seem to have a rather keen opinion about it. For someone who had a complete stranger take them in, train them, buy them clothes at their expense, and support you for an entire month, you seem to be really hung up on Kakashi's absence. Mei fired back, all the while smiling. Naruto seemed to shrink at that note. Sorry, he mumbled. I just can't believe he would try and complain to me about what I do in my battles. He didn't help me at all. Well, he did tell you to work on chakra control, Mei said with an amused smirk. Not funny, Naruto drawled as he watched the fight pan out. Shikamaru was doing his best to stay at range in the shadows of the wall, the sound engine on Dosa's arm being the major threat. Although he doubted anyone knew just how far that sound engine could actually reach. Perhaps a little, Mei offered. So how did you do that out there? I've never seen anything like that. Really? Like I have said in our training, Naruto, what you are able to do is very rare. Few people in history has shown to have the chakra necessary to apply this technique that you do. It was largely unexplored territory for us as we train Naruto. I was really just going to teach you water techniques until I saw you were making actual progress. Naruto adopted a thoughtful look at that. Oh, well, it's not really that interesting. Ever since I started practicing this technique, I have felt my chakra sticking to other people. It didn't really even dawn on me why until we started going over the other opponents in the tournament. That Dosa guy said that our bodies are made up of around 70% water, and it kinda just clicked. Although I didn't realize I could do that until just the other day. Wait, you were controlling the water in his body? Mei asked in surprise. Yeah, something like that, Naruto returned with a grin, rubbing the back of his head. Mei smiled at that and wrapped an arm around Naruto's shoulder. Well, I'm impressed, Naruto. I don't think I'll ever be able to do that. I'm proud of you. Naruto flushed lightly at the embrace. Thanks, Naruto said quietly, his teenage body certainly taking notice of the beautiful woman beside him. So have you thought about how you are going to go into your match with Sasuke? Mei asked as she released the blonde teen. Thought about it? Sure. Have a plan? Not really. Both Sasuke and Kakashi have the Sharingan. He could have taught Sasuke anything over this past month. Or everything, Naruto added on the end dryly. You would probably be lucky if your sensei did do that. Your teammate would then be in a state where he would be using a multitude of techniques he hasn't utilized in real combat. It is more likely that your sensei had Sasuke focus on a couple subjects, like we did. Well, in that case, I have no idea what those subjects could be. Neither do I, Mei admitted with a smile, so let's instead try something else. The story you told me about your journey to Wave Country, I remembered it, and decided to make this for you from what you described, Mei said as she withdrew from her clothes an object carefully wrapped in cloth. What is it? A gift, but also a weapon, Mei provided as she handed over the wrapped object. Naruto unwrapped the cloth with care and flipped over the object in his hands with surprise. How did you get this? The blonde teen asked in shock. Get it? I made it for you, Naruto. You described the mask in your story and you said the person had a rather profound effect on you. I felt that you should have something to remember them by. Naruto held the mask delicately between his hands. It was taking a lot of his willpower to not choke up at that moment. His mind was reeling. He could count the few gifts he had ever been given in his life on one hand, but none of them had ever been so personal to him. When people are protecting something truly precious to them, they truly can become as strong as they need to be. That is when I realized that in all of the world no one needed me. I was alone. Can you understand? Not having a dream, not being needed by anyone, the pain of merely being alive. It is only through the eyes of others that our lives have any meaning, Naruto said quietly as he remembered the girl's words. His eyes watered as he fought back a potential tear, not wanting the woman to see him cry. Thank you, Mei. The woman pulled Naruto into another warm hug as she kissed the teen on the forehead. Anytime, she whispered, deepening the hug. Just remind him why he was afraid the first time. The mask will make it difficult for him to meet your eyes. she finished as she let the young teen go. It was at that point the stadium broke out in a roar as the match between Shikamaru and Dosu came to the end. Are you two done yet? The voice of a young female fired at the duo. The brief hug was quickly broken as Naruto stood up to take in the sight of a familiar face. The girl was a few inches shorter than Naruto, and had straight dark hair that went just past her shoulders. She had a tan jacket with 3 straps in the front part exposing a fine fishnet undershirt. The jacket was hooded with a white fur lining. The outfit was paired off with shorts that had seen better days. Her clothing made it obvious that the girl was a shinobi even if she had none of her equipment strapped on. You're the one Niji was looking after, right? Hinata's little sister? Hanabi. She said, crossing her arms. And you're the boy that stole main branch Hyuga techniques to beat my cousin. She said bluntly. Naruto scoffed. I didn't steal anything. And I've dealt with enough Hyugas today if this is how you all act. Thanks. Sure you didn't. Everyone knows you stole the forbidden scroll to graduate. Who is to say you wouldn't steal something else to pass this exam? Because I busted my ass this entire month to get to where I am. Hanabi voiced. Naruto sighed heavily. Look, I don't have time for this. However, because you're Hinata's sister, here's the truth. I don't even know your family techniques. I just saw what Niji was doing and copied him in the fight to trip him up. Apparently I'm faster than him, so it worked. Now if you don't believe me and want to go and drag your family into it like your cousin, I don't care. I have other things on my plate. Hanabi laughed. You're faster than him? Yeah. Right. Well, you're lucky you weren't fighting me down there, Naruto. I wouldn't have gone easy on you and let that happen. Naruto chuckled as he silently gave his thanks to Mei before walking to his match. Whatever you say, firework. The blonde said with a wave. Hanabi bristled at the comment as she turned to Mei, who was looking her over from head to toe. What are you looking at? Mei stood up now, practically towering over the girl. A young girl that is not as smart as she thinks she is. Hanabi glared defiantly up at Mei as the woman continued to look the girl over. At least I'm still smarter than you. The girl fired her comeback without hesitation. Are you? You may be skilled, but your cousin is by all accounts a genius when it comes to your clan's martial arts. He was able to achieve that level without any assistance from members of your clan. Now you decided to come here and try to threaten the one person that beat him in this tournament? Mei asked with a raised eyebrow. Well, good luck. But you're still too young and inexperienced to hope to match. Hanabi's expression soured as she watched Mei make her leave. Well, I'll prove you wrong. The fiery Hyuga yelled after the retreating woman. You do that, Hanabi Hyuga. I was afraid you weren't going to make it, dope. Sasuke grinned as Naruto approached from the end of the hallway. The speakers were loud as they introduced both parties for the upcoming fight. Who, me? I'm just happy you made it on time. Wouldn't want anyone to miss seeing you get your ass kicked. Sasuke grinned. Let's hope you're just as confident when I show you what I've been working on this past month. Oh, you know how it is, Sasuke. I told everyone I was going to win, so they gave me an extra match to try and hold me back. Although I don't think what you worked on is going to help you much. Sasuke gave one of his rare chuckles. You've already gone through one match, dope. I can already smell victory from here. Although there is always another tournament in 6 months. Uchiha Sasuke. The stadium cheered as Sasuke's name was called. I'll let you know what victory tastes like when I get it. And Sasuke, I hope you have your application filled out. I'm going to try and make this quick. Naruto grinned. Sasuke smirked as he jumped into the arena only for the cheer of his fans to nearly drown out the speakers. His new look definitely attracting the crowd. Naruto cracked his neck from side to side before moving to crack his knuckles. Naruto. A quiet voice addressed from behind. Naruto spun around at the greeting. Oh, hey, what's up, Shikamaru? I wanted to get the chance to talk to you before your match. Shikamaru said seriously, his eyes showing a rare steel. Shikamaru's serious attitude made Naruto suddenly stand up straight. Guess this wasn't to wish me luck? Naruto asked, amused. Not with this match, but it will if you make it to the next one. Shikamaru said seriously, I think I know a way you can beat Dosu. All I ask is that you beat him for what he did to Chuji, since I couldn't. Naruto's eyes widened for a moment before he collected himself. What do you need me to do? I thought you said that you were worried I was going to be late, Naruto? You can't even make it 50 yards in 5 minutes. Sasuke teased with a smug grin. Oh yeah, well, you know, Naruto drawled on, I got caught up having to take care of all of this paperwork. Apparently all of your fangirls are trying to sign over to Team Uzumaki preemptively. Sasuke snorted. Well, I hope you're giving them fair shares. Naruto laughed. I decided it would be on an as-needed basis. Genma smiled at the exchange on the field. Well, at least you two get along better. Naruto chuckled. Wait until you see the match. The two of them had been waiting for this moment for quite some time. Not a sparring match. Not a team exercise. A real match where the two would be against each other. They were expecting the match to be in the finals. It had just come earlier than they expected. Well then, any last words before I start the match? Genma asked. How about a bet, Naruto? A bet? On the match? For what? You tell me what you used to beat Niji if I win. Sasuke said with a grin. Oh, someone's curious. And if I win? What do you want? Naruto frowned at the thought. He didn't know what he wanted. I'll let you know when I win. Sasuke smirked. I hope you remember that you said that as you explained to me your fight with Niji. Although if a miracle happens and you do win, you better not ask for anything stupid. I'll probably just have you use your Uchiha family fortune to take every girl that has a crush on you to the new Princess Gale movie a few times in a row. Naruto said with a cheeky grin. That's not funny. Sasuke replied with a deadpan expression. Not yet. Sasuke sighed as he gave a nod to Genma, one which Naruto quickly followed suit. Alright, begin. Alright, please tell me I'm not the only one surprised by that. Ino said quickly as she looked toward her peers. I mean, Naruto is good. Way better than I expected. But Sasuke even said that Naruto may win? Sakura shrugged her shoulders. I don't know. Naruto has gotten a lot better this month, but Naruto has never beaten Sasuke, and Sasuke has probably gotten a lot better himself. He is probably just being nice. Naruto has already had to go through a match after all. You two girls should pay more attention to the fight. The Sharingan is a rare feat to see in action these days. And the techniques Naruto showed in his last match haven't been seen in more than half a century. Kurenai announced as she watched the match below with the focus of a hawk. The two hadn't even moved a muscle since it started. Oh, whatever. They haven't even done anything yet. Ino complained. Actually, Ino, the match started the moment Genma called it. Kakashi said as he gazed upon his students. Naruto tightened his jaw as he looked across at Sasuke. He didn't want to charge headlong into his teammate, but the longer they stood there, the more things didn't sit right with the blonde. What are you waiting for, Sasuke? Before the thought had time to process, Naruto was sent sailing through the air with a significant pain in his jaw. How? Naruto thought in surprise as he immediately sprang back to his feet when he hit the ground. Sasuke stood across from him with a smirk on his face. Naruto gently wiped his bleeding lip before giving a heavy breath. Genjutsu Naruto realized as his blue eyes locked with Sasuke's red ones. The one on the door. Sasuke's smirk increased as he entered a fighting stance. I was wondering if you would figure it out. The false surroundings technique. You couldn't see it then, and you still can't see it now. Naruto fumed at that. I didn't think you were the type to sit back and resort to illusions. Who said anything about sitting back, Naruto? That was all me. Sasuke said, flexing his fingers. Naruto shook his head as he quickly halted the flow of his chakra before restarting it once again in a burst of chakra. The act forced away blades of grass and dust. That won't happen again, Sasuke. I'd hope not. I wanted to beat you with what I learned this month. Not something I learned before we even entered the exam. Sasuke replied with a smirk. Show me. Naruto replied, grinning as he settled into a fighting stance of his own. Sasuke charged. Whoa! He's so fast. Sakura said as she clutched the rails, watching the new turn in the fight. Sasuke had taken the lead from the beginning, but now he was a blur of speed. Naruto appeared to barely be holding his own, deflecting and dodging the attacks. I had Sasuke working on his speed for the majority of our month together. He is probably close to the same speed as Guy's student Lee with his weights removed. Kakashi revealed. Naruto will likely have a hard time keeping up with an opponent such as that after a while. But Kakashi, Sasuke wasn't always slated to fight Naruto. He was going to fight the boy from Suna. Why did you work on his speed? Asuma asked with his cigarette hanging loosely in his mouth. For the other part of the training I taught him, which was specifically for his fight with Gaara. Kakashi said as he carried on watching the fight. That must have been an interesting form of training you forced Sasuke to go through then. Although I believe Naruto may surprise you. He is quicker than you think. The voice of Mei called out on her approach. Welcome back, Mei-san. Kurenai greeted politely. Come to watch the match? Mei smiled in response. I have. I gave Naruto some advice for this match, so I am hoping that it works out for him in his favor. He is likely already winded after the last match he had not too long ago against Neji. Sasuke's training was intended to give him the speed to get around Gaara's sand in the same fashion as Lee, while using ninjutsu to take advantage of the opening his speed created. Kakashi reported. What was your intention for Naruto? The Jounin pried. Mei politely smiled. I had a similar goal, although quite different. I knew that attempting to get Naruto up to the speed of Lee he described in the preliminaries would be quite difficult. Instead, we chose to work on his reaction speed. Your student Sasuke may be faster than Naruto on foot, however locked in combat I believe Naruto's speed will surprise you. The two genin had been trading attacks back and forth in rapid succession. This skirmish was by far the most exciting of the tournament thus far. It was one long ongoing fight. A war of attrition and endurance. Sasuke's red eyes followed Naruto's every movement. The intercepting fist was prepared for every strike Naruto could throw. Although some strikes Naruto could throw were not tangible, the two had maintained a close distance between one another where kicks had been nearly rendered impossible. Naruto threw out a left-right combination into an uppercut. Sasuke dodged in quick succession. It was Hinata's match versus Neji all over again. Naruto followed with an uppercut that narrowly missed Sasuke, who spun around on his heel with a spinning backhand. Naruto flipped backwards and placed the backhand sailing past the tip of his nose. Following the tips of his feet was a torrent of water that materialized out of the air. Sasuke jumped backwards, his hand to his mouth in a familiar seal. The name of the ability was drowned out by the sound of the raging flaming ball that spewed forth from his lips. Naruto dove away to the path of least resistance, his body rolling across the dirt floor. Although just like Sasuke's notorious eyes, His methods for prediction were far more advanced than other shinobi his age. A rain of kunai and shuriken fanned out just where Naruto had landed. Naruto quickly fell on his back, a clone immediately popping into existence on top of the blonde. "What are you?" the clone muttered before stopping as a volley of assorted metal weapons pierced its back. Not even a moment after the weapon struck, the clone popped out of existence with the metal weapons clattering on the blonde's chest. Although Sasuke left no room for recovery of momentum in their battle. His superior speed on his feet carried him to Naruto nearly in an instant. A vicious kick to the chest sent Naruto sailing into the air. The Uchiha genius showing his worth as the rest of his plan came to the forefront. Immediately the numerous weapons that had been tossed at the blonde rattled behind the Uchiha. Sasuke waved his hands outward, clapping them together. The wires jingled against the metal weaponry as they sailed into the air after the blonde. "Sasuke isn't messing around, he might really hurt Naruto," Sakura muttered as she watched the one-sided fight carry on. "Don't worry, Sakura. Genma is a trusted jounin. He will stop the fight if he believes it is going to go too far. We have experienced medical ninja standing by. Naruto will be fine." Kakashi comforted his student. "May, I thought you said that you gave Naruto advice to use against Sasuke. What was it?" Kurenai asked skeptically. Asuma snorted out smoke. "Whatever it was doesn't appear to be helping much." May, however, was unfazed by the comment. "I have always felt that in my youth the hardest part about being a shinobi was dealing with being afraid. I felt that fear of loss, of death was just the path to failure. As a child I realized I needed to train myself to let go of everything I feared to lose. I told Naruto if he could make Sasuke feel that same fear he once felt, then perhaps he would barely need to fight at all." Ino snorted, as if anything could scare Sasuke-kun. Chuji stopped munching to briefly say, "Your dad says that everyone is afraid of something, Ino. He would know." "What did you suggest that he do?" Kakashi asked suspiciously. "To pick a moment where Sasuke was afraid, and to harness that moment." Sasuke's wires quickly wrapped around Naruto's form as he sailed through the air, tying him together, as Sasuke's hands formed into another familiar seal. The wires were set ablaze as fire raced their length. "Kakashi-sensei," Sakura pleaded desperately at the sight as the jounin continued to observe. In an instant a surge of water burst forth surrounding the blonde as fire met water and a thick blanket of steam flooded the arena floor. The excitement of the crowd and the cheering had all but gone silent as they tried to peer into the misty aftermath of the exciting play of events they just witnessed. Although up in the stands, a voice from the mist bled into the ears of the members of Team 7, causing a chill to run up their spine. 8 points. Larynx, spine, lungs, liver, jugular, subclavian artery, kidneys, heart. Now which will be the place I sever first? Kakashi-sensei, that's Zabuza's voice, Sakura said with her voice trembling. Kakashi's gaze had hardened as he recognized the voice of the man that could have taken his life if not for his own hubris. "I know, Sakura," Kakashi said coolly as he turned to May. "This was your suggestion." May was equally wide-eyed as she heard the voice. "No. Not this. I didn't know about this," she said, her own voice trembling. Although it didn't hold the same fear that Sakura's held. It held something else entirely. While a clever ploy, using past tormentors is a cruel way to defeat another shinobi of Konoha in battle, and Sasuke has more dangerous ones than most. Kurenai addressed, the mistress of illusions, not keen on the foul play being displayed. May shook her head. "I never suggested an illusion. I anticipated he would do something else." Sasuke froze at the sound of the voice that once had him paralyzed in fear. A torrent of water shot up into the sky and quickly began to barrage down in bullets that were leaving holes in the dirt trailing towards Sasuke. "Sasuke-kun! Snap out of it!" Sakura's voice yelled louder than anyone else's from the stadium stands. Sasuke shook his head and brought himself back to reality at the last second, as he narrowly dodged the rain of water bullets that drilled holes into dirt where he had just been standing. "You move well, but this time I'll stop you," another voice said from behind Sasuke that made the young genin tense up again in fear. Sasuke immediately dove away again in desperation as he backed himself into the wall. "Enough of these tricks, Naruto. That fight is over. You died," Sasuke yelled before he focused his gaze on the blonde. "Oh man. Sasuke is starting to lose it. Naruto is getting into his head." Chuji mumbled around a mouth full of food. "Oh, shut up, Chuji, no one asked you," Ino said sourly as she watched her crush slowly break down on the field. Sakura trembled silently as she looked upon the mask that had nearly ended the lives of her two teammates. Across from him stood a hooded figure in an all too familiar mask that had once been worn by a shinobi that had nearly killed him in the past. The Mist Shinobi emblem carved into the mask just as it had been the first time. "But did I truly die that day? Did you bear witness to it? Or was my death merely superficial? A comforting lie told to protect you. That day you said you would not die until you killed your brother. What if I showed you that you were wrong?" The soft voice of the hunter ninja spoke from behind the mask. Sasuke's eyes grew wide as his chakra surged, anger evident on his face as he stared at the masked ninja. "If you intend to kill me, I will take you with me," Sasuke roared, charging forward. He was no longer the controlled shinobi that maintained a level head, intercepting attack after attack from the blonde. He was now on the offensive, set to give as much damage as he received. As a punch connected with Sasuke, and blow was delivered in turn to the masked shinobi. Amidst the battle and exchange of blows, Sasuke continued to roar at each attack. When I was a boy, Sasuke said, exchanging blows, my brother took my family from me. Sasuke yelled as another blow connected, only for several to be returned to him. Sasuke jumped backwards at lightning arced and gathered from the ground across his soaked form, gathering into a ball of light in his hand. Then he took my childhood, Sasuke said coldly. Sasuke! No! Kakashi yelled as he already placed one foot on the railing. You taught him that! Asuma yelled, another cigarette wasted as it spilled from his mouth, falling to the arena floor. Are you insane? Kurenai criticized. He is a boy. An unstable one. I taught him that because Sasuke is like me. Kakashi replied angrily as he saw his technique used against the very people he made it to protect. Like you are the poster child for stability, Kakashi? Kurenai fired back without hesitation. Kakashi ignored her. I'm going in, he said as he prepared to launch himself into the arena just as Mei latched onto his arm. If you do this, you forfeit on Sasuke's behalf, Mei said coolly. Sasuke isn't thinking straight right now. Look at him, Kakashi demanded. Down on the arena floor, black markings had begun to crawl up his neck. And all of this was done by your plan. Naruto trained hard from this month, and I won't see this opportunity stripped from him because his own sensei refuses to have faith in him. Mei fired back. You are not his sensei, Kakashi yelled back as he jumped down to the arena floor, with Mei following after him. Sasuke had rushed forward, charging the masked shinobi of his nightmares with lightning crackling in his hand. Chidori! He yelled. Genma! Kakashi yelled as he reached the floor. He would have been on time if it weren't for his unpredictable student who charged Sasuke at equal speed. Genma would never have the time to stop the match. Sasuke surged forward with his arm aiming for Naruto's torso as the entire crowd's breath hitched and held to the sound of chirping birds. An explosion immediately rocked the arena floor as the event seemed to play out for everyone watching. Genma was rushing to stop the clashing genin in the center of the arena. Kakashi had been forcibly restrained by the blue-clothed Mei Terumi at the edge of the arena floor. Sasuke stood in the middle of the arena with his hand crackling and energy firmly buried. Naruto stood across from the red-eyed shinobi, one hand pointed to the ground, the other wrapped firmly around Sasuke's neck. The Chidori was firmly planted into the earth just as it had been initially planned for as the electricity continued to burn through the belts and bandages on his arm. When Genma arrived next to the duo, his chest was heaving from the adrenaline of seeing one of Konoha's deadliest assassination jutsus used on another shinobi of Konoha, and failing. Sasuke's Sharingan faded into the black onyx orbs characteristic of his clan as a look of defeat flashed over his face. The black tattoos that had threatened to creep up his entire face faded away. Naruto dropped Sasuke to the ground as he still kept one hand firmly pointed to the ground where Sasuke's burned arm remained stuck in the soil. Quickly the blonde removed his mask and crouched down beside Sasuke. Hey Sasuke, I'm sorry. Naruto muttered an apology. Sasuke head fell forward as he numbly nodded his in reply, unwilling to look Naruto in the eye. Black markings that threatened to creep up his neck retreated back down his shoulder. You were right, Naruto, back when we were kids, Sasuke muttered. Right about what, Sasuke? You would grow stronger than me. But you always have been, Naruto. You don't feel fear. Not when we were kids. And not since our first mission. Sasuke, everyone is afraid of something. What matters is how we chose to face our fears. Naruto replied quietly as he gently pat his teammate on the shoulder. Genma looked between the two genin before looking to Sasuke's hand firmly stuck in the soil. Genma's gaze found Naruto's once again curiously. What you can do. I have never seen or heard anything like it ever. You could make a difference in this village. Naruto gave a weak smile as his heart swelled at the acknowledgement. Naruto relinquished his hold over Sasuke and returned his arm to his side as he took a step away from his opponent. Winner! Uzumaki Naruto! Genma proclaimed loudly. The entire stadium roared both in shock and amazement at the incredible and flashy performance that had just been displayed by the two shinobi. Off to the side of Genma and the genin stood a stunned Kakashi with his arm no longer firmly restrained by Mei. You may not approve of what I did just now, but if you give all of your students a fair chance, they all have the opportunity to surprise you as Naruto did just now, Mei said calmly. Not seconds later, a shower of shinobi rained down in a circle around her. Naruto spun on his heel as he felt the rain of shinobi fall into the arena surrounding both Kakashi and Mei. Quickly the blonde rushed to both of his senseis. Hey! What's going on? Naruto yelled on approach. Naruto, stay back! Kakashi commanded with a raised hand, trying to halt the blonde. No! What are you doing to Mei? Naruto asked, now practically stomping forward during his approach. He held his left arm with his right carefully as he glared at the silver-haired jounin. Mei looked between both Kakashi and Naruto as if the other dozen shinobi that surrounded her didn't matter. It's alright, Naruto. These shinobi are just doing their job. What the hell? This isn't their job, Naruto yelled before he snapped his gaze on a particular masked shinobi. Hey, don't touch her, Naruto. While Mei may have been the one to teach you this month, she openly apprehended a Konoha shinobi on Konoha soil, which is against several laws. Kakashi explained with a portion of regret in his voice. So what? You were jumping in here to stop the fight. I had it. Look! Naruto continued gesturing to the collapsed form of Sasuke, who was being looked over by a medical ninja. Naruto, it looked very different from where we were standing, and it could have gone a lot worse than it did, Kakashi stated as he gestured to the blonde's arm. It also appears that you did not walk away from Hatake Kakashi's signature technique unharmed, Naruto, Mei suggested as her eyes fell on Naruto's arm. Although Naruto only heard a few of her words. Kakashi's signature technique? Naruto said in bewilderment. Wait. You took Sasuke for a month to train, and you taught him your signature technique? What the hell, sensei? Perhaps I can explain all of this then, Naruto, a wise old voice proclaimed from behind the irate blonde. Naruto quickly stepped aside, knowing who was behind him. Old man. What gives? Naruto was quick to disrespect the man he saw as a grandfather. Sarutobi Hiruzen chuckled to himself as he gently patted Naruto on the shoulder. Beside him was the Kazekage dressed in his traditional robes, adding a great deal of power and tension to the arena floor. Well, Naruto, you see, Mei Terumi here is not who she says she is, Hiruzen explained as his soft, grandfatherly eyes fell on Mei. However, it was that soft, grandfatherly look that was used to hide the legendary professor's notorious prowess in battle. Naruto's gaze snapped to Mei, who looked unfazed by the statement. What are you talking about? Naruto asked in confusion as his eyes ping-ponged between the two. Everyone, you can stand down. I don't imagine there is much many of you could do against this woman anyways should she choose to lash out, Hiruzen proclaimed. The person before you is Mei Terumi, the woman who led the land of water out of civil war, and is currently the 5th Mizukage. The tension between the surrounding shinobi could be cut with a knife. Even shinobi like Kakashi and the reputable Kazekage looked surprised by the revelation. Naruto, however, looked absolutely floored in his confusion. You're well informed, Hokage-sama, Mei stated neutrally with a slightly forced smile. You become well read when you reach an old age such as mine. Terumi-san, this issue could have simply been resolved if you had at least introduced yourself publicly during the exam. Mei curtsied with a smile. Well, Hokage-sama, my people haven't been to a Chunin exam in many years, not since the days of Akagahara. I am also surprised you were able to identify me. Not many outside of the land of water know who I am. The grandfatherly Kage laughed. Yes, Mizukage, those were very different times. And they don't call me the professor simply because I'm old, the Hokage addressed. What the heck is going on? Naruto burst out. Mei grimaced briefly. Naruto, remember how I told you that I was from the Hidden Mist village, but I would tell you who I was at the exam. Well, it seems your Hokage beat me to the punch on that note. Naruto's eyes widened like saucers at that. What? I was trained by the Mizukage, the blonde yelled as he nearly bounced on his feet in excitement. Hiruzen smiled as his gaze moved from the stiff form of Mei to the excitable form of Naruto. Indeed, you were Naruto. You see, I knew from the beginning that Miss Terumi had arrived at our village but would have liked to remain anonymous for the majority of the tournament. However, during the second phase of the exam, after your teammate Sasuke was attacked by an unknown assailant, Kakashi spoke to me after the preliminaries requesting to take Sasuke away from the village to keep him safe. He didn't want your friend to be targeted by another attack while inside of the village, Hiruzen explained. Across from the wise Hokage, Mei's face went through a range of emotions from shock to a simmering anger as her hands began to lightly clench at her side as she listened to the Hokage's words. So naturally I found that Kakashi's reasoning as Sasuke-sensei was sound. However, I knew he also had another student, being you, participating in the exam. We both agreed that abandoning you would not be right. I told your sensei that his request would be permitted as long as we were able to find you a suitable replacement for the month-long period. This is when I had your sensei Kakashi approach Ebisu, who would be your temporary replacement, as I requested Miss Terumi to train you for the course of the month to go hand in hand with our preliminary talks for an alliance between our villages. She graciously accepted, and you apparently found her before she even needed to seek you out. It appears her training has done you some good, Naruto, the Hokage said with a bright smile. Naruto, however, was grinning from ear to ear. Old man, you got the Mizukage to train me? Are you serious? That's awesome. Oh man, where is that bastard? I got to tell, Naruto said as he began ranting off as he scanned the field for any sign of Sasuke. Although Naruto was in his own world over the new revelation regarding his training, the shinobi surrounding the blonde were deathly still. Mei was squared off across from the Hokage, both of their stances firm and rigid. The shinobi that surrounded the village leaders were also significantly on edge. Hokage-sama, Mizukage-sama, I do believe we have other matches to get underway. Let us not keep those in the stadium waiting any longer, the Kazekage said in a smooth, cool voice. Hiruzen smiled at that notion. Why, Kazekage-sama, you are right, the man said as he turned to face the Kazekage. I do believe there are more exciting battles to be had on this day, the aged leader said as his eyes practically pierced through the Kazekage's robes. Although just as the professor's steely gaze was on the Kazekage, it returned to his grandfatherly smile once it was on Mei again. Now, Terumi-san, perhaps you would like to tend to your student before we carry on with the next match. Mei stood still for several moments in silence before she forced herself to smile and gave a curtsy. I'd appreciate that very much, Hokage-sama, she said practically through her teeth. Hiruzen smiled in turn, with his gaze lingering on Mei for a few moments, as he gave a nod to his shinobi to take their leave. Well played, Mei simply mouthed to the Hokage as he was the last one to remain from their encounter. The professor smirked and tipped his hat to the young Kage. Kakashi returned to the small collection of jounin gathered around their genin students. Guy had returned to the fold with Tenten and Shino joining shortly after. Kakashi-sensei, is Sasuke-kun alright? Sakura asked hurriedly upon her sensei's return. Kakashi gave a solemn nod as he returned to the group. I just spoke with the Hokage-sama about what just transpired, Kakashi said as he looked down to the arena floor. Mei was walking to the other arena exit after Naruto. I can't believe she is the new Mizukage. I thought their country was still in civil war. You even said that Sabusa's goal was still to overthrow the current power in the mist. Kurenai stated, her tone all business. Kakashi nodded. Well, apparently he was either operating on old news or this Mei Terumi was his target. If her country just got out of civil war, she shouldn't have the time to be traveling around like this. Her village's foundations can't be that strong, Asuma stated with a drag of his cigarette. Perhaps she was seeking something that would help improve the village's foundations as they attempt to rebuild. The Hokage mentioned negotiations for an alliance. Guy suggested already having a feeling towards the woman's purpose. The Hokage lied. Kakashi said bluntly as he looked around between the jounin and the silent genin who knew that they should be staying quiet in this conversation. He never met Mei or told her to seek Naruto out. His words weighed on everyone in the group, suddenly understanding what was underneath the image the woman had crafted. Asuma took another drag on his cigarette. See? This is why I no longer leave the village any longer than I have to, the former 12 Guardian Shinobi muttered as he ashed his cigarette. Mei's face was cool and collected as she walked off of the arena floor following behind Naruto. Every step she took she could feel the wet dirt crumble beneath her feet. Her sandals soon found concrete as every step became firm and rigid. No more than a few steps into the tunnel leading from the arena, Mei stopped as she took a heavy breath. With an abrupt turn, the auburn-haired beauty jabbed her hand into the concrete wall of the tunnel. Her hand pierced into the wall like a hot knife through butter. She grabbed firmly into the wall before giving a heavy pull. A large section of it crumbled away as it melted, while Mei let out a scream of rage before slamming her other fist on the wall. Not more than a couple seconds since her outcry, a young blue-haired shinobi with a large sword on his back appeared beside the woman. Mei-sama, are you alright? He asked in a hurry as he did all he could to assist the woman. No, Chojuro, I'm not okay, the woman said as her head fell against the wall, her fist clenching and unclenching. What do you need me to do, Mei-sama? Chojuro asked obediently. Mei pulled her hand roughly from the wall as she massaged where she had been buried to her forearm. There's nothing you can do, Chojuro, the Mizukage said quietly. I was so stupid. I should have realized that the professor would have recognized me. Naruto wasn't supposed to find out like that, the woman whispered. I don't understand. Weren't you going to tell him anyways? Chojuro asked in confusion, a sharpened tooth barely peeking out over his lip. Mei gave a scoff. Chojuro, the woman muttered quietly as she gently cupped the boy's cheek. Don't change. I hope you never have to lose the innocence our war spared you, the woman said fondly. Chojuro opened his mouth to quickly speak, but was silenced as Mei placed a finger on the young teen's lips, causing the young man to flush bright red. Return to Ao. I'm going to go see Naruto. If I can fix this, then I will stay. If not, then we will be returning home within the hour, Mei said as she made her way down the hallway. Wait. Just like that? Chojuro called after his village leader. Just like that, the woman affirmed as she continued walking. So do you get the plan? Shikamaru asked with a raised eyebrow. Naruto stood across from the pineapple-haired genin with an equally raised eyebrow. I didn't know you were this smart, Shikamaru. Gee, thanks, the shinobi muttered. I thought you were lazy. I am, though. Naruto. Shikamaru burst out annoyed. Yeah, I got it, Naruto said, putting up his hands in defense. I'll take care of him for you both, alright? Shikamaru nodded with a weak smile as he extended his hand to the blonde. Thanks, Naruto. Naruto looked down at the offered hand as he struggled to grasp it with the pain in his own. How about this one? Naruto offered with a forced grin which Shikamaru saw right through. How about you get your injury looked at before your fight? Shikamaru suggested as he accepted the handshake with his other hand. That's why I'm here, Mei's voice called out quietly behind the duo. They were in an empty hallway and their voices were already nearly echoing. Mei! Naruto yelled out, his voice echoing heavily through the halls. The woman put on her best smile. I'm right here, Naruto. No need to yell. Show me your arm. Shikamaru took this as his cue to leave as he gave Naruto a pat on the shoulder. Good luck, Naruto. I'm rooting for you. Win this for Konoha. The genin smiled. Naruto returned a smile. You bet. It's a promise. The exchange only caused Mei's smile to falter. The first couple minutes after Shikamaru had left were spent in total silence between the two of them. It was like a battle of wills in which one would speak first. There was just a slight hum of green medical chakra going over Naruto's injured arm. You know, you could have just told me you were the Mizukage, Naruto said, breaking the silence between them. I wouldn't have judged you. Heck, the old man told you to find me. Mei weakly laughed as she shook her head. Naruto, I haven't been honest with you. Mei, like I said, it's fine. I was just saying you could have told me from the beginning. That's not what I'm talking about, Naruto, the woman said as she stopped healing the boy in front of her. She placed her arms over his knees as she balanced her elbow on his knee so she could rest her face in her hand. Naruto flushed a light red and was thankful for the lack of good lighting in the tunnel. The downward view of the woman practically resting on his legs was enough to send another teenage boy into a blood-pumping craze. The blood would just pump to all the places he didn't want them to go at that opportune time. Really? What is it then? Naruto asked as he averted his gaze to the light fixtures. The Hokage was lying to you, Mei said quietly before shaking her head, knowing that wasn't enough. I lied to you. Naruto's blue eyes suddenly were cast in confusion as he met Mei's familiar green orbs. What do you mean? The Hokage didn't send me to find you. I had come to the village to try and see how strong the youth of other villages were in contrast to my own village. Many of our youth were killed in the civil war or left orphan. Mei explained. Naruto frowned at the memory of the story. I know. I met one of them. Naruto muttered before he withdrew the gifted mask from his clothes. Mei weakly smiled. That you did, the woman said as she looked fondly over her work. I never anticipated finding you, Naruto. A young man that was so lost but also needed my help. I wanted to help you. You did help me, Naruto said as he grasped the woman's hands with a smile, both of his arms in better condition than before. You did so much for me. You fed me, clothed me, trained me. You are the greatest friend and sensei, and well, like anything I could ask for, Naruto said as he flushed a bit more, stumbling over his words. That warms my heart, Naruto, the woman said as she gently gave Naruto's hands a squeeze. I like you a lot, perhaps more than I should. Naruto's smile faltered. What do you mean more than you should? What's wrong with liking me? It's because of who you are, Naruto. Mei, you aren't making any sense, Naruto practically cried out as he squeezed the woman's hands tighter. Because who I am? Naruto muttered as his eyes seemed to search within himself rapidly. Did someone tell you more about the fox? Naruto whispered, tears threatening to pour from his eyes. Is that it? You can't like me because of the fox? The two sat in silence as Naruto simmered in his feelings, and Mei continued to gaze upon the blonde carefully. Of course not, Naruto, the woman said as she sat down beside Naruto on the steps and pulled the teen to her in an embrace. Then what? Naruto mumbled into the woman's chest. Mei's silence seemed to prompt the blonde further. What is the reason? We are from different villages, Naruto. Don't you understand? No. I don't understand. Just because we are from Naruto. I realized that as time went on I liked you more than I should. You are a shinobi of Konoha. I am the leader of another village. We will never see each other again after this month. Mei continued. No. No. That's not fair. You are the nicest person I have ever met. I know. You've told me. No, you don't. You don't know what it's like. Living in a place that you are supposed to call home, and turning around to no one that loves and cares about you looking out for you. Naruto explained. Naruto, I can't stay, and the feelings I have for you will just be forcibly taken from me. Maybe this is just Kami telling us that we're not fit to be together like this. Where I am leading a village, and it is your dream to lead your own. Naruto's gaze fell at the mention of his own dream. The only way for us to be together would be for you to give up your dream here and to come with me. I can't ask you to do that, no matter how much I may want to. You want me to join your village? Naruto whispered quietly as the thought rested heavily on his mind, his dream crumbling around it. Mei gave Naruto's hand a gentle squeeze before she let go. I do. This month I grew to love a brave young ninja who needed me as much as I needed him. Naruto perked up at that. You need me? Naruto whispered. I do. But this is a choice you have to make for yourself. If you leave your village you will be hunted, just as Zabuza was hunted. Mei explained softly. I can't promise that I can protect you from that. The woman finished as she stood up and took a few steps away from the blonde shinobi. Where are you going? Naruto asked quickly as Mei retreated. Your match was just called, Naruto. Another Suna shinobi forfeit. The woman reported. Are you leaving? You aren't going to watch my matches? I'm afraid not, Naruto. I have to return to my own people. Wait, but you said it was my choice. You have always helped me. What should I do? Naruto pleaded for answers. Mei looked remorseful as she spoke. A long time ago I once made a choice between love and my ambitions. What did you choose? Mei smiled weakly and shook her head. I can't tell you that, Naruto. Did you regret your choice? Mei smiled. I did. The woman said as she collapsed into a puddle on the floor. Naruto leapt to his feet in shock as the white mask clattered to the ground in front of him. Inside the mask was a neatly folded piece of paper. The roar of the crowd was practically shaking the stadium stands as Naruto was given his introduction. Many had believed that the young Uzumaki would be the underdog for the majority of the tournament. The bets being placed on the matches had anticipated the young blonde falling short in his match against the Hyuga prodigy, let alone his Uchiha teammate. He was an underdog that the people were invested in seeing win at this point. The blonde teen stood still with his dark hood down on the arena floor. His hair nearly shadowed over his eyes as he paid no attention to the crowd. His focus was on the clutched piece of paper in his hand and his mask in his other. Quite a different reaction from your first appearance, Gemna noted with a grin. Yeah. So it would seem. The blonde muttered as he reread the words on the tiny piece of paper. Meet me here in 1 hour, was all that was said on the note written on a small portion of Konoha's village map. Alright, well, you usually have something to say before these matches. Do either of you have anything to say to each other this time around? Across from the Konoha shinobi was the bandaged sound shinobi Dosu. I was planning on getting my rematch against Sasuke. However, I believe that this boy from the desert will have to do next. Your tricks won't work on me, and I'm not scared of some mask like your teammate was. Naruto stayed silent as the words repeated over and over in his head like a manta. 1 hour. 1 hour. 1 hour. 1 hour. Naruto? Genma asked curiously with a raised eyebrow. The kid usually had something to say. Do you keep track of the time down here? The blonde asked, snapping out of his thoughts. Genma reached within his pocket to pull out a small stopwatch which he flashed to the genin. Can you tell me when 30 minutes have passed, if we get to that point? Naruto asked politely. Don't worry. We won't. Dosu called out from across the way. His smirk was even visible underneath all of his bandages. Sure, kid. Genma replied with a nod as he held his hand up to call the match. Begin. About time you got here, that was embarrassing. Ino complained as the pineapple-haired genin joined their group. Gee, thanks. Oh, don't listen to her, Shikamaru, you did good. That guy is really tough. Chuji said as he continued munching on a large bag of popcorn. I have to agree, Shikamaru. I saw firsthand what that sound engine of his was capable of. He was going to be a tough fight. I doubt many first-year genin can beat someone like that. Tenten spoke up for one of the rare moments she decided to join in on the conversation with those a year younger than her, not to mention the guy still creeps me out. Sakura muttered under her breath as she watched the sound ninja unveil his tool of choice on the arena floor. He's not so tough. During our fight he relies heavily on his tool, and for that reason he knows how it works pretty well. However, he can be pretty easily beaten in a few ways. Shikamaru said before taking a brief glance around. What happened to everyone's senseis? I saw all of them up here during my match. They said they were going to go talk to the Hokage or something. Chuji said noncommittally. If he can be beaten so easily, why didn't you defeat him, Shikamaru? Shino pried. There was a tinge of heaviness to his voice that was more emotion than Shino typically displayed. He was probably questioning whether it was the right decision to surrender his match against the Sand Ninja. Because I couldn't. The young genius provided as his eyes focused in on Naruto. But I know Naruto can. There was some visible surprise that rippled through the group like a rock being dropped in a pond. Why are you so confident in this kid? Why are all of you so confident in him? He beat his opponent by farting on him. Tenten asked in mild disbelief as she gauged the reactions on everyone's faces. Naruto was the dead last of the academy. Yet he hated that moniker. I was second to last in the academy. People look at him and see a failure, or they look at me and see someone without any ambition, but it isn't like that. Naruto had all of the motivation needed to become a good ninja, but none of the support the rest of our class had. Shikamaru began to explain as the others listened intently. Shino's family members at birth are injected with the legacy of their clan. They are taught how to use family techniques because it is part of their culture. Ino, Chuji, and myself, we all come from clans and have parents that were on a team together. Our success as a team of shinobi was almost designed before we even entered the exams together. Perhaps before we were even truly ninja. Even Sakura comes from a family that is well off, and has both her mother and father supporting her. She grew up reading books because her mother runs and manages the library. You can't cite a single person in our graduating class that didn't have some form of outside help besides Naruto. Even you, Tenten, a blacksmith's daughter. Shikamaru stated bluntly. Geez, Shikamaru, I think this is the most I've ever heard you talk or explain things to people without getting bored. Is my baby growing up? Ino teased as she pinched the pineapple-haired genin's cheek. Shikamaru shook his head and brushed her hand off. Knock it off, Ino, I'm being serious. The reason, and the only reason Naruto stands down there further than any of us is his drive. Oh, whatever, Shikamaru. I think he only just recently got this good. That month of training did him wonders. Ino said with a grin in a sing-song voice, particularly for his body. The blonde girl added as an afterthought. That's a lot of talk, but if he was really so driven, why didn't he grow up reading books like Sakura? I'm not like my teammate Niji. I don't believe success is genetic. Lee proves that hard work can help you climb mountains. Although this drive, I don't see it. Tenten stated. Naruto wasn't in the library reading books because he didn't know how to read. Shikamaru said with a sigh. Sakura practically rounded on Shikamaru on that note. Wait, what? How do you know that, Shikamaru? I never knew that. The blonde's pink-haired teammate rattled off in surprise. Shikamaru palmed his face and sighed. I know because back when we were in the academy, he asked me for help. Wait, so you taught Naruto how to read? Ino asked incredulously. Shikamaru grimaced. No. He taught himself. I turned him down. I will admit that your performance in the finals was better than your performance in the preliminaries. At least you have that going for you. Although your road to victory ends here. Dosa said. Naruto pulled up his hood before slipping the gifted mask in place. He then settled into a loose stance as an orb of water began to grow in front of the blonde. Water, eh? Apparently you didn't pay attention to the lesson I taught in the preliminaries. Dosu mocked before shoving his arm forward as sound waves fired outward from the weapon. The dust on the ground shot aside as the waves of sound rocketed toward the blonde. Immediately Naruto dove into the pool of water in front of him. The pool continued to grow in shape as water materialized out of thin air and collected in the orb. Dosu smirked as he fired an even greater volume of sound on orb of floating water. The water rippled and warped with sound waves dancing along the surface of the orb at the act. However, the blonde shinobi looked unaffected. He swiped his hand outward in an arc several times. Blades of water arced out across the arena floor, carving into the dirty. Dosu expertly dodged the distant oncoming attacks while sending back wave after wave of sound against the orb of water. The orb began to slowly drift toward the bandaged shinobi on the opposite side of the field as Dosu's attacks continued to be ineffective. "If you think I'm going to let you just stay back and attack me, you're wrong," Dosu said as he charged forward at the rapidly incoming blades of water being slashed his way. Dosu's sound engine produced wave after wave of energy, visibly distorting the smaller arcs of water as he pressed forward. The bandaged ninja jabbed his hand into the orb of water upon arrival. "You should have learned that sound can move through water." As the sound engine flared to life, the entire orb of water began to distort and lose shape. The form of Naruto inside the water began to heavy and clutch at his body. The tables turned immediately when a hand burst forth from the ground and grabbed Dosu's ankle. "What?" the confident sound shinobi yelled in shock. His feet were pulled out from under him as he fell back to the muddy floor. Naruto burst forth from the wet ground as the Naruto inside the sphere of water collapsed back into the sphere, showing its true form. The water floating overhead immediately came crashing down upon Dosu with the weight of a raging waterfall. Naruto quickly grabbed the shinobi wire from his pocket, and with a practiced ease pinned Dosu's arm down all the way to his straw raincoat. The sound engine continued to blare loudly as the sound ninja attempted to control the sound waves with chakra. Naruto cringed briefly as the water would shift over to the engine, enhanced sound waves bleeding out, causing the blonde's vision to blur. Naruto flared his chakra as more water pulled out of the air in a violent crash, coming down right upon the sound ninja, and his drowned scream of pain. "Give up!" Naruto demanded as the sound engine filled up with water, bubbles trying desperately to be heard from the water. "Never!" Dosu yelled back angrily as he tried to force his body up under the incredible pressure. Naruto frowned behind his mask as he looked over Dosu before his gaze fell on Genma. The Senban chewing proctor shrugged his shoulders. If he wants to keep going. Naruto's jaw tightened at the thought. 1 hour. Please surrender. I don't want to hurt you anymore, Naruto pleaded. Dosu laughed behind his bandages. That is the thing with you Konoha ninja. You aren't able to do that as necessary. Dosu fired back. Naruto's eyes fell behind his mask before he gave a sigh. Fine, I don't get it. How was Naruto able to get that close to him? That sound device was able to put out enough sound to make Lee's ears bleed, Sakura said in wonder, as she watched the bandaged shinobi pinned under a never-ending downpour of water, all noise from his device drowned out. Shikamaru sighed as he watched the one-sided fight play out. It was playing out exactly how he expected it to. Water is denser than air. While sound can travel through air at upwards 700 miles per hour, in water it is much different. Sound travels through water over 4 times as faster and further than air. If that is the case, then why isn't it affecting him? Shouldn't he be in more pain then or something? Ino asked as the fight was proving to be quite one-sided. Naruto had reached up and snatched the bandages from Dosu's face, unraveling them all over the sound ninja. Because Dosu fights using sound waves. Sound waves don't transmit between air and water well. The way Dosu's attack works is funneling the sound waves through a person's eardrum, and generally into an air-filled chamber in the middle of the ear. However, since Naruto submerged himself in the water, sound wasn't able to easily transmit into the sphere. Now it's the opposite. Naruto has the sound device submerged in water while he is standing out in the air. The sound waves once again aren't able to affect him. Shikamaru explained as he watched the fight. Everyone surrounding the pineapple-haired shinobi suddenly was looking on the fight below with a degree of respect and surprise. How did he come up with that plan? Tenten asked in surprise. Shikamaru spared Chuji a pointed look before turning to Tenten. I guess he figured it out himself. He's better than people give him credit for. Holy shit! Ino yelled in shock. Naruto stood on the arena floor with a grimace on his face. A torrent of water had shot off of Dosu's form before launching directly at his now exposed mouth. Dosu began to thrash back and forth as his eyes widened, struggling against the wire and liquid restraints. Genma rushed over and raised his hand. Alright, fair enough. I'm calling it. The bandana-wearing proctor said as Naruto quickly ceased drowning the sound genin and the water collapsed to the ground into a puddle where the sound shinobi lay prone and sputtering. Winner! Uzumaki Naruto! Genma called out as the crowd once again roared to life for their most successful competitor. What's the time? Genma looked to his watch. It's only been about 15 minutes. Genma reported. Anyways, go check out with a medic so that I can get the next match underway. Naruto nodded and began walking off the arena floor as Genma turned back to the stands to introduce the next match. Gaara of the Desert. Genma's voice proclaimed loudly upon introduction. Naruto behind you. Sakura's cry yelled over the crowd and sailing into Naruto's ears. Although by the time her words had reached something else hit him first. Naruto was sent sailing across the arena floor before tumbling violently across the wet and ruined dirt. The crowd had cried out in shocked gasps that quickly turned to outrage. "See! You can't do what is necessary! You can't finish what you started!" Dosa proclaimed with a cough, his body still winded from the near drowning he experienced moments before. Naruto struggled to his knees as his vision blurred as he looked across the arena floor. Genma and several other shinobi were converging on Dosu. Although before the shinobi could arrive, a pool of sand surrounded at Dosa's feet consumed the genin like a shark's jaws consuming its prey. The only area of Dosa left exposed was the tattered bandages that once wrapped around his face. The glob of sand enclosed around Dosu and crushed itself inward with a sickening squish. People in the stands cringed as the bandages peeking out of the sand began to turn red. At the bottom of the sand glob, dark and thick pools of blood were leaking out between the grains. Naruto's gaze went between the backstabbing sound ninja and the red-haired sand shinobi. Although the most unnerving part about the scene was that the sand shinobi wasn't paying attention to the sound shinobi caught in his technique. Instead, he was silently gazing across at Naruto's fallen form. In a swirl of leaves, Genma was at Naruto's side offering the blonde a hand. "Sorry about that. Usually the medics just come and take them away. Didn't think anyone would have the balls to attack someone in front of the entire arena like that. I'll get you some time." Naruto frowned as he accepted the offered hand, although his gaze was still locked on Gaara. "Well, apparently a few people are," Naruto mumbled as he tried to ignore the redhead's crazed look. The man laughed. "Yeah, well, I can't say I feel sorry for him after the stunt he just pulled," the man said with his senbon shifting between his lips. "Just try and get yourself looked at, alright? That last attack looked like it hurt." Naruto nodded quietly in acknowledgement as he left the arena. However, this time he didn't turn his back on the people that resided in it. Naruto stumbled into the dark hallway, collapsing his back against the wall. Across from him on the opposite side of the walkway, the wall was utterly ruined. A large section of the wall had been pulled right out and crumbled to the floor. Naruto held his chest, no longer having to hide his weakness in front of the crowd. He removed his mask and unbuttoned the front of his top before gingerly prodding his bruised ribs. Naruto hissed in pain at the contact as a pool of water collected near his fingertip, which he proceeded to have cover the injured portion of his ribs. "Water isn't going to do you any good. 4 of your ribs are cracked." Naruto peered out of his squinted eyes to the new arrival. "Well, hey there, firework.